Chapter 860. Wind, Fire, Thunder, and Lightning. Some Ascension Realm powerhouses might not be able to find all the tribulations when they were going through the Ascension Tribulation. For example, Jun Tianyi of the Sun-Moon sect. He only had the lightning tribulation of wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, which belonged to the lowest level of the Ascension Tribulation. Tianyang said that he had no hope of becoming an emperor and that it would be difficult for him to become an emperor, and there were very few geniuses who could encounter the fire tribulation. Sanguinati had almost died under the fire tribulation. Those who could encounter the wind tribulation were true peerless geniuses. Mysterious Sky Saber Emperor, Ice Emperor, Zhou Xing Sword Saint, and so on. However, to be able to encounter the three tribulations of wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, throughout the history of the Sky Continent, no one had ever been able to do it. Legend has it that Red Dragon Wu Zun was the last bit of the fire tribulation. How did I attract the wind and fire tribulation when the lightning tribulation was at its strongest? Tianyang's expression was extremely ugly. Even Red Dragon Wu Zun had barely attracted the wind and fire tribulation. The strongest Emperor Shi Su had was the wind and fire tribulation. But he had the wind, fire, thunder, and lightning tribulation? Didn't this mean that if he passed it, he would become an emperor in one fell swoop? If he couldn't, he would die? Forget it. To Red Dragon Wu Zun and Emperor Shi Su, the heavenly axiom wants to train. To me, the heavenly axiom wants to kill me. Tianyang smiled coldly, killing intent flashing in his eyes. The surrounding Yin wind seemed to have turned into a storm, blowing on Tianyang's ancestral dragon body, arousing waves of resistance from the ancestral dragon body. Although the flames were suspended in the sky, Tianyang could clearly feel that the surrounding air was rapidly heating up. In just a few seconds, the air in the entire inheritance space had risen to the level where it could melt gold and forge iron. There was no distortion at all. But Tianyang was clear. Now it was just the calm before the storm, when the wind, fire, thunder, and lightning tribulation truly descended. That kind of power, even if it destroyed the world, it would not be an exaggeration. If the six-path fire tribulation and the seven-star wind tribulation appear at the same time, it is called the all-creation tribulation of wind and fire. Those who encounter such a calamity will either die or soar to the heavens. Now, the 5-elemental lightning tribulation, the 6-elemental fire tribulation, and the 7-star wind tribulation are descending at the same time. What should we call this? I remember the great destruction of civilization. Tianyang smiled, revealing a hint of relief. Back then, he had faced this great tribulation that he had almost no power to resist. After forcefully enduring it a few times, his chest was pierced through, and he died and was reborn. At this moment, wasn't the situation that he was facing very similar to his previous life? The same unprecedented calamity, the same destructive thunder, and the same Tianji Sword Emperor. However, the former Tianji Sword Emperor was powerless to fight back. The Tianji Sword Emperor not only wanted to survive this calamity, but also wanted to destroy him. At this moment, the flames, lightning, and storms in the sky had all condensed to the extreme. The next second, boom! The thundercloud exploded. The Blood Sea is attacking. The Shadow Clan is destroyed. At this moment, in the sky, there was a panicked roar that seemed to directly shatter the East Sea Dragon Palace. Hearing this, the people of the East Sea Dragon Palace, who were struggling to maintain the defense in the thunderstorm, were all shocked. The Shadow Clan is destroyed? For a moment, there was no way to continue supporting the defense array of the East Sea Dragon Palace, and it almost collapsed. What's the situation? Dragon King was the first to react. He called the messenger over. What happened? At this moment, the entire East Sea was trembling under the most terrifying calamity in history. It wasn't just the East Sea. Wherever the thunderclouds passed, there would be extremely terrifying thunderstorms. The East Sea Dragon Palace was a little smaller because the Heavenly Sun was here. The Demon Clan. The Demon Clan has officially launched an attack. There has been no news from the Shadow Clan for many days. When our people went to check, they found that the Shadow Clan had been occupied by the Blood Sea. Even our people died in the Blood Sea. They risked their lives to send back this news. The messenger said in fear. The Demon Clan, a clan that only existed in legends in the Heaven Continent, had once again descended. Moreover, they launched such a terrifying attack as soon as they arrived. According to the previous information, the Blood Sea was the base camp of the Demon Clan. The stronger the Blood Sea, the stronger the Demon Clan. The huge population of the Demon Clan was born from the Blood Sea. In other words, the people who died in the Blood Sea in the Heaven Continent could very likely become the Demon Clan soldiers who trampled on the Heaven Continent in the future. The Shadow Clan is destroyed? Doesn't that mean that the Blood Sea is very close to the East Sea Dragon Palace? Dragon King was shocked. Hearing this, the people of the East Sea Dragon Palace were shocked. These days, they had already experienced the horror of the Blood Sea. Naturally, they knew what would happen when the Blood Sea attacked. That's right. It's only 1,000,000 miles away from the East Sea. However, with the mysterious thunderstorm, the Blood Sea's vitality was damaged and temporarily slowed down their attack. If not, the Dragon Emperor's city would have fallen. The messenger gasped for breath. Hearing this, the entire East Sea Dragon Palace was silent. Half a month ago, the Blood Sea of the Demon Clan was still in the southern wilderness region. Now, it was close to the East Sea Dragon Palace? Didn't that mean that the southern part of the continent had been swallowed by the Blood Sea? Then, what are the reactions of the other forces? Dragon King gritted his teeth and asked. Hearing this, the messenger trembled and showed a trace of anger. They don't care about us. Granny Ling Shan died in the 9th Heaven Palace. They don't want to deal with us and don't want to deal with the Blood Sea. The Red Flame sect lost their supreme Red Flame. Now they are attacking the other sects who might attack the Red Flame sect. They don't care about us at all. The Buddhist sects in the western region have already left. They don't want to fight back. The ancient shrine even thinks that the Demon Clan can be destroyed easily. They don't need to care about us and chased our people out. The messenger shouted angrily. Hearing those words, the faces of everyone present warped in shock. The old Dragon King gritted his teeth and looked into the distance. It was the direction of the central region. These animals. Just as Heavenly Firmament World was about to fall into a huge crisis in the inheritance space, Tianyang had also suffered an incomparably terrifying injury. The wind, fire, and lightning tribulations. Wind targeted the soul and was all-pervasive. Fire targeted the true Yuan and could burn anything. Lightning targeted the physical body. The wind, fire, and lightning tribulations were, in fact, the tribulations of one's essence, chi, and spirit. Luckily, I activated the 4-star secret technique. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to block the 7-star secret technique. Tianyang swayed in the wind, fire, and lightning tribulations. It had been 3 months since he received the inheritance. For 2.5 months, he was in the wind, fire, and lightning tribulations. But now, it's time to end it. Tianyang raised his head and looked at the thunderclouds. At this moment, the thunderclouds rolled, and a seal suddenly shot out. Chapter 861. A seal tore through the void, broke through Tianyang's defenses, and landed heavily on Tianyang's body. Poof! There was a muffled sound. However, the seal pierced through Tianyang's body and landed in the air. However, the ground that the seal landed on also exploded instantly. Even the already incomplete legacy space had completely collapsed. Tianyang had already sensed that something was wrong. He immediately used the all-Dao movement technique to dodge the attack. Rumble. There was a loud sound. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He forced his body to soar into the air. Using the void-treading secret technique, he brought the Dragon Emperor and Dizwa to travel through the void. After Tianyang's battle with the wind, fire, and thunder calamities, the legacy space could no longer withstand it. Now, this sudden seal was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. However, in the next second after Tianyang left the legacy space, the inheritance space suddenly collapsed, emitting a deep sound. However, Tianyang only realized it after leaving the legacy space. Outside, the Dragon Emperor Pagoda was also shrouded in thunderclouds. As for the Dragon Emperor Pagoda and the true Martial Dragon Palace, they looked like they had been run over by a wheel. Even the desert was now filled with an aura of destruction. This thunder calamity can actually penetrate 2 supreme-grade spiritual treasures? Tianyang was shocked. At this moment, a figure stepped out of the thunderclouds. Sinister winds swirled, lightning flashed, and flames burned within. This person's face was like jade, his eyes like stars, and his eyebrows were like swords. His face was handsome, but he was not very old. Someone walked out of the thunder calamity? Tianyang was shocked. At this moment, the figure formed another seal with both hands. Flames and lightning merged and charged towards Tianyang fiercely. One seal could shatter mountains and rivers. Who is this person? Tianyang's expression changed. This seal was exactly the same as the one that had penetrated his afterimage. Obviously, they were all sent out by this unknown figure. Damn it! Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and the reaching heaven state Jinyuan in his body that hadn't been completely stabilized burst out. The great void sword embryo shone with the light of a supreme-grade spiritual weapon and emitted a terrifying sword light. Shatter the void. Boom. The sword light and the seal violently collided. With the center of the collision as the center, a terrifying ripple of energy spread out in all directions. As a result, the surrounding space began to collapse. Where did this guy come from? Seeing this, Tianyang's face changed greatly. He activated the divine desolate heaven spirit art and disappeared from where he stood. In the next moment, the seal shattered the sword light that he had casually slashed out and bombarded the place where Tianyang had been standing. Legend has it that, at that moment, the demon ancestral portrait's voice suddenly sounded. According to what the ancestors of the demon race recorded in my body in ancient times, there are such legends in other worlds. The great tribulation of the heavenly path, the lightest is the lightning tribulation, the heaviest is the fire tribulation, and the highest is the wind, fire, and lightning tribulation. However, for a prodigy who can dominate an era and dominate eternity, there is a 4th tribulation in the great tribulation of the heavenly path. That is the primordial emperor, the demon ancestral portrait said. Hearing this, Tianyang's face changed slightly. Primordial emperor? Primordial, not ancient times. Speak clearly, Tianyang said in a low voice. His muscles were tense and his nerves were stretched to the limit. The threat that this guy gave Tianyang was no less than the demon emperor from before. Hearing this, the demon ancestral portrait didn't get angry. Instead, it spoke with an extremely solemn tone. The primordial emperor is an infamous existence in the primordial era. Even a saint's state is trash in front of the primordial emperor. And in the primordial era, when all worlds were united into one, some great worlds might have recorded information about the primordial emperor. Thus, during the great tribulation of the heavenly path, they could simulate the primordial emperor's shadow. The demon ancestral portrait said. Hearing this, Tianyang's face changed. The primordial emperor's shadow? In other words, he was now fighting against a true emperor of the primeval age, someone who had shaken countless worlds? However, the primordial emperor's shadow also has limitations. It can only be at the same level as the person undergoing the tribulation. Even the will of the great world and the heavenly path can't summon the primordial emperor at will. It can't control the primordial emperor's shadow either. The demon ancestral portrait said. Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly relieved, but his face was still extremely solemn. Fortunately, it wasn't a real primordial emperor. However, at the same level, it meant that the primordial emperor in front of him was an ancient overlord during the Great Tribulation of the heavenly path. If it's the same age, you probably won't have much of an advantage. Every primordial emperor is amazing. Even if they aren't as good as you, they won't be much worse. The demon ancestral portrait said again. Hearing this, Tianyang was immediately speechless. At this time, the primordial emperor's shadow, or more accurately, the young emperor of the primordial era, attacked again. The young emperor was expressionless. With flames in one hand and lightning in the other, they transformed into two pung wings. With a burst of terrifying speed, they attacked Tianyang fiercely. At the same time, he clenched his fists and punched out. A lightning dragon and a fire dragon condensed supreme divine power and attacked Tianyang fiercely. This punch can probably kill even a Great Tribulation Realm level 6. Tianyang's face changed slightly, and his expression became extremely solemn. He had pride, but he wasn't arrogant, confident, or conceited. His talent and strength in this corner of the firmament world may be regarded as a peerless genius, but in the whole universe, he was still too ordinary. Disregarding everything else, just the young emperor's shadow in front of him was enough to make him go all out. Sky Extreme Sword Art, 5th Sword, Trampling Life. Tianyang roared, and the Divine Wilderness Heaven Spirit Art was activated rapidly. A terrifying sword light instantly condensed. It shot out explosively. At the same time, Tianyang formed a seal with his left hand, and an immemorial mystique attacked. Immemorial Blood Seal. Left and right, the primordial blood seal and the life-trampling sword collided with each other like the fists of a primordial young emperor. Boom! In that instant, the Dragon King Pagoda trembled, and cracks spread rapidly. The true martial dragon palace was trembling violently. The clash between the current generation's genius and the young emperor was too terrifying. It was so powerful that the two supreme-grade spiritual treasures couldn't withstand it. Get out quickly. Otherwise, you'll destroy the Dragon King Pagoda and the true martial dragon palace. The demon ancestor portrait hurriedly shouted. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded heavily. He stepped out and returned to the restrictive spell space. However, he had broken the Dragon Gate Divine Steel, and was no longer restricted by the restrictive spell space. As for the young emperor, he was still restricted by the restrictive spell space for a fraction of a second. This fraction of a second was enough for Tianyang to fly to the Dragon King Pagoda's door. Just then, an unforeseen event occurred. Flaming phoenix burning the plains. A loud phoenix cry rang out. The flames in the young emperor's hand turned into a brilliant phoenix that pierced through space. It ruthlessly attacked Tianyang's back, who had just stepped out of the Dragon King Pagoda. Pft. Chapter 862. Pft. Tianyang spat out a mouthful of blood. His body, which had already been battered by the tribulation, was severely injured again. At this time, the primordial young emperor had finally broken through the restrictive spell space of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda and was behind Tianyang. The Dragon Emperor Pagoda was a supreme-grade spiritual treasure and a prenatal spiritual treasure. It was naturally powerful. However, it was still too weak in front of the primordial young emperor. Moreover, the restrictive spell space had lost much of its power after so many years. Sky Sword Art, Firmament. Tianyang turned his head and roared as the great void sword embryo appeared in his hand. One sword, Firmament Ascension. A magnificent and powerful sword radiance shot towards the primordial young emperor. Boom! There was a loud sound. The primordial young emperor reached out and extinguished the sword with a phoenix-like flame. However, Tianyang had already used the recoil to charge out. He left the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. Once out of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, Tianyang was relieved. The Dragon Emperor Pagoda and the true martial Dragon Palace were both supreme-grade spiritual treasures. Tianyang had to take care of these two treasures and could not use them fully. And now, Tianyang was in the Dragon Emperor's tomb. This space was like a mini-world. Even if he destroyed it, Tianyang would not feel the pinch. After realizing that he had fallen into a trap, the primordial young emperor reacted quickly and rushed out after Tianyang. However, what came at him was a Dragon Emperor's mystical fist, burning with destructive flames. Dragon Emperor's mystical fist, complete version. Heaven-class upper-grade martial art technique. Dragon Emperor's mystical fist. This was a powerful martial art technique that the true martial Dragon Emperor had spent his entire life creating. Only the true martial Dragon Emperor's mystical dragon bloodline could use it fully. As for Tianyang's ancestral dragon bloodline, he was able to completely unleash it. Art of the Nine Heavens Emperor Dragon. Tianyang let out a roar once again. The force of the ancestral dragon burned, causing his aura to skyrocket. Even the fist print seemed to have received some kind of terrifying boost. Its aura increased by 3 to 4 times, and it was like a mountain crashing down on the primordial young emperor. Primordial young emperor punched out. The lightning and fire phoenix merged and shot towards the Dragon Emperor immortal fist. However, boiling dragon blood. Tianyang let out a low roar. The 108 dragon tattoos immediately lit up with dragon flames. The Dragon Emperor mystical fist also unleashed a power far greater than before. Even the primordial young emperor's punch was shattered by Tianyang, sending him back into the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. The art of the Nine Heavens Emperor Dragon was a dragon tribe mystique that Tianyang had obtained from the legacy of the true martial Dragon Emperor. Burning the dragon force, calling upon the Nine Heavens, erupting with the might of the Emperor Dragon. In addition, Tianyang had burned a bit of his ancestral dragon bloodline, causing the primordial young emperor to suffer greatly. Tianyang also had time to prepare. Heavenly Sword. Tianyang let out a low roar. A 9-colored Xinguang entered the great void sword embryo. Martial soul talent devour heaven. Tianyang lifted his head and roared into the sky. His devouring power exploded. When Tianyang was at the peak of the half-step Heavenly Ascension Realm, he could reach the 5th tier of the Heavenly Ascension Realm with the heaven-devouring mystique skill. Even though he had the help of the Demon Emperor's demonic chi. But now Tianyang's strength was far greater than before. The 3 months of tribulation had allowed the Heavenly Sword to evolve once again, and he now had an upper-grade heaven-class martial soul. In an instant, his battle strength reached the 6th tier of the Heavenly Ascension Realm. At the same time, in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, a violent and powerful aura soared into the sky. The primordial young emperor appeared in front of Tianyang in an instant. His fist was burning with flames and lightning, and he punched at Tianyang's face. Scram! Tianyang roared. His Heavenly Ascension Realm aura burst out, and the great void sword embryo in his hand slashed out. At the same time, the primordial young emperor formed a seal with both hands. A sinister wind blew, and the wind and thunder combined. Primordial mystique, tempest guide. The great void sword embryo and the primordial young emperor's hands collided violently. Dazzling arcs of lightning shot out in all directions from the center of the collision between the primordial young emperor and Tianyang. Lightning surged, and heaven and earth trembled. The entire Dragon Emperor mausoleum was trembling slightly. Devour! 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 Tianyang roared. The heaven-devouring mystique skill was activated again. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth, as well as dragon power, quickly merged into Tianyang's body. However, the primordial young emperor seemed to have sensed the change in spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and his face fell instantly. He punched out. Bang! A terrifying force, as ferocious as a giant dragon, sent Tianyang flying. At the same time, The primordial young emperor was enraged. Streams of mysterious aura were released from the primordial young emperor's body. The surrounding mountains and rivers trembled slightly. Even the primordial spiritual treasure, the supreme grade dragon emperor pagoda, bent slightly toward the primordial young emperor. All things bowed. Seeing this, Tianyang's face fell. At the same time, the demon ancestor portrait's shocked voice rang out. Oh no! The primordial young emperor is going to use his emperor technique. Kid, run! The demon ancestor portrait shouted anxiously. Hearing this, Tianyang's face fell. Emperor technique? Great emperor techniques are called emperor technique. The emperor techniques of the primordial young emperor are not something you can imagine. They are terrifying techniques that can destroy the world with a wave of their hands. Even if you are only facing a primordial young emperor, that power is something that not even Wu Zun can withstand. The demon ancestor portrait roared. Hearing this, Tianyang's face fell. However, he did not listen to the demon ancestor portrait. Instead, he steadied himself and stood in the void. A burst of sage sword Dao aura shot out from Tianyang and into the sky. What are you doing? The demon ancestor portrait's face fell. Are you trying to resist the emperor technique? What a coincidence! You guessed right. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone with terrifying light. You're crazy! An emperor technique can shatter a world similar to the heavenly firmament world in one move. The demon ancestor portrait roared. However, Tianyang's face did not change. There was a flame burning in his eyes. Raging battle intent was released from Tianyang's body. The primordial young emperor has dominated the world, and his emperor technique is invincible? Tianyang smiled. The aura on his body began to boil slowly. Seeing this, the demon ancestor portrait fell silent. At this moment, Tianyang. No one could stop him. Then I'd like to see if my sword is stronger, or if the so-called emperor technique is stronger. Tianyang roared. The great void sword embryo in his hand erupted with Xinguang. The heavenly sword shone with 9-colored Xinguang. Like Tianyang, it revealed an incomparable battle intent. The heavenly sword had been connected to Tianyang's heart since 10,000 years ago. Although the heavenly sword did not have an artifact spirit, its original spirituality was of the same origin as Tianyang's. Old friend, now, accompany me for another round of madness. The primordial young emperor's aura grew stronger and stronger. It was so strong that even Tianyang found it difficult to breathe. However, Tianyang's expression did not change. The heavenly sword also released a powerful light. It was going to fight the primordial young emperor as an equal. Martial soul, sublimate to the extreme. Tianyang stomped his foot and roared into the sky. The 9-colored Xinguang shone with unparalleled brilliance. Tianyang's aura also rose to the extreme. Sublimate to the extreme. Once he used it, his vitality would be greatly damaged. However, Tianyang would rather die than flee at the last minute. The primordial emperor? The overlord who ruled over 10,000 worlds? In the same realm, he might not be stronger than Tianyang. Sky Sword Technique, the Ultimate Sword. Chapter 863. Celestial Pole. Tianyang roared. His entire being seemed to be ignited by a flame. The demon ancestor too stared at Tianyang in a daze. The current Tianyang was very similar to the demon ancestor Wan Xing in ancient times who fought for his race and the world. However, even the demon ancestor Wan Xing was just an ant in the origin transformation realm when he was Tianyang's age. His opponents were not as terrifying as the primordial young emperor. Just as Tianyang took a step forward and slashed the sky with his sword, the primordial young emperor also raised his head. He moved. His hands quickly formed a seal. Terrifying waves of energy bloomed from the primordial young emperor's body. Fire phoenixes and lightning circled around him. It was as if a god had descended from the sky to destroy the world. It is indeed an Emperor technique. I didn't expect it to be the legendary Supreme Thunderfire Seal. The demon ancestor too murmured. It came from the ancient era, so it knew far more secrets than the heavenly sun. The demon ancestor too had heard of the Supreme Thunderfire Seal. It was a mid-tier Emperor technique. The one who controlled this Emperor technique was one of the primordial great emperors, the Thunderfire Supreme Being. I didn't expect it to be the Thunderfire Supreme Being in his youth. The Thunderfire Supreme Being was known as the #1 genius in the primordial southern wilderness. Tianyang can fight him to this extent. If it wasn't for the fact that the Thunderfire God King had mastered an Emperor technique that shouldn't have appeared in his youth, Tianyang might have been able to defeat him. The demon ancestor too sighed. The primordial era, the primordial chaos, even the demon ancestor diagram did not know much about the primordial era. Therefore, it could not provide any information about the Thunderfire Supreme Being. Supreme Thunderfire Seal. At this moment, the primordial young emperor spoke. His voice was like an immortal descending from the heavens. Every word carried a unique Taoist rhyme. When the 5 words were spoken, the entire world collapsed. That's right. The Dragon Emperor's tomb collapsed. This was the power of an Emperor technique. A great emperor could shatter a world by chanting its name. Seeing this, Tianyang was fearless. He arrived in front of the sovereign Thunderfire Seal and slashed out with his sword. The first 5 swords of the Sky Extreme Sword Art were fixed swords, mid-grade heaven class. As for the final sword strike, it had never been said that it would be the 6th sword strike. This was because the heavenly sword was the most powerful sword that Tianyang had comprehended by combining countless sword Tao cultivation. At this moment, even the 10,000 swords returned to origin was far inferior to the celestial pole. So what if you have an Emperor technique? This is my era. Even a great emperor can only kneel in front of me. Tianyang roared and slashed out with his heaven's extreme sword. Boom! At the moment when the heavenly sword collided with the sovereign Thunderfire Seal, the aftermath of the collision caused the tomb of the Dragon Emperor to completely collapse. Everything around him turned into darkness. Immediately after, a violent energy storm appeared. Block it! Lightning and fire merged into one, moving along a mysterious path. Every time they moved, they would resonate with heaven and earth. An Emperor technique was too terrifying. Tianyang's heavenly sword was comparable to an ordinary holy martial art, or even an immemorial superpower. However, in front of the sovereign Thunderfire Seal, it was still weak. My heart is not dead, my thoughts are eternal. The sun and moon may die, but I will not die. Heaven and earth may decay, but I will not die. At this moment, Tianyang's burning blood suddenly condensed into a figure. The figure was blurry and looked very illusory. However, when the figure stepped out, the whole world seemed to be still. The collapsing mausoleum of the Dragon Emperor came to a standstill. The retreating celestial sword was also frozen in place. Even the Emperor technique seemed to have turned into a picture in the world the moment the figure appeared. Even the immemorial young Emperor, the Thunderfire Divine King, turned into a part of this picture when he was young. Your bloodline purity is not enough, but you have comprehended the immortal will? At this moment, the figure turned his head and looked at Tianyang, whose bloodline was almost burned out after the extreme sublimation. A look of admiration appeared on his face. When the Thunderfire Divine King was young, he was already comparable to Wu Zun. What's more, the Thunderfire Divine King's figure has mastered an Emperor technique. Even the supreme geniuses of the myriad Tao divine realm may not be able to reach this level. To be born in a small world and have such achievements, his talent is really amazing. Well, even if the bloodline purity is not enough, with the immortal heart, you can still achieve the immortal bloodline. The figure smiled and pointed at Tianyang. If the immemorial young emperor had consciousness, he would definitely cry out in shock. Even if the figure was so blurry that it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman, the Thunder Fire Divine King could still recognize it. During the immemorial era, the Supreme Master who dominated the fate of all living beings. The immortal Heavenly Lord. However, the immemorial young Emperor did not have any consciousness. The bloodline purity is too low, so he has no strength. However, what should be done has been done. The rest depends on his luck. This sword is not bad. It has the embryonic form of an Emperor technique. Remember, Myriad Tao Divine Realm, Immortal Heavenly Lord. The figure smiled faintly and slowly disappeared. The frozen time and space around him flowed again. Boom. The Supreme Lightning Fire Seal released a bright Xinguang, directly destroying Tianyang's celestial sword. At this time, Tianyang suddenly opened his eyes. 7 Stars Secret Technique. Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migrez. The 4 stars all burst out with bright light. However, the Supreme Lightning Fire Seal still enveloped Tianyang. Tianyang's chest was pierced, and his limbs turned into ashes and dissipated. His life force disappeared, as if he was about to die. That figure did not have any power, nor could it weaken the Supreme Lightning Fire Seal. Tianyang's eyes were unfocused, and a darkness enveloped him. At this time, in Tianyang's soul sea, a loud voice rang out. My heart is not dead, my thoughts are eternal. In the next moment, Tianyang's body suddenly trembled. The head that was about to be destroyed by the Supreme Lightning Fire Seal suddenly burned with a flame. The flame was small, insignificant, and difficult to detect. Even the primordial young Emperor and the Demon Ancestor diagram did not notice it. But this flame tenaciously resisted the Supreme Lightning Fire Seal's last attack, and at the same time, it burned Tianyang's body. This was the great opportunity that Tianyang obtained when he comprehended the Undying Heart and summoned the Undying Heavenly Lord's bloodline mark before his death. Undying bloodline, undying fire. My heart is not dead, my thoughts are eternal. Tianyang muttered to himself. In the next moment, his torso recovered, his limbs grew, and his meridians, dantian, true essence, and soul were all recovered. The new right hand grasped the hilt of the great void sword embryo. At this moment, Tianyang was no longer weak after the extreme sublimation. Instead, he was stronger than before. The undying bloodline has recovered? Tianyang was shocked. Then, he suddenly reacted and looked at the Supreme Lightning Fire Seal that had exhausted its power. He smiled slightly. Chapter 864. All Dharma spells and superpowers would run out of energy at some point. Even Emperor techniques were no exception. On the contrary, it was precisely because the Supreme Thunder Fire Seal was an Emperor technique that the immemorial young Emperor's Ascension Realm cultivation base could maintain for an unbelievably short period of time. The immortal bloodline is so powerful. Tianyang smiled. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone brightly as he stood up again. The lightning and flames of the Supreme Thunderfire Seal were still burning and bombarding Tianyang's body. However, every injury was healed by the immortal fire in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Tianyang, as long as his genuine origin energy was not exhausted by the immortal fire, it could be said that he was always at his peak. Tianyang, who had broken through to the heavenly ascension realm with the help of the endless spiritual sea, had much more genuine origin energy than others. Break! Tianyang snorted as he struck out with the great void sword embryo. After experiencing life and death twice, Tianyang's sword principle had become much more powerful. Although this strike did not contain any great Tao, it carried a trace of the Tao of life and death. This strike was comparable to an upper heaven-class martial technique. Boom! The Supreme Thunderfire Seal and the strike collided. Energy ripples spread wildly in all directions. However, at this moment, the Supreme Thunderfire Seal was no longer as powerful as it had been when it had crushed Tianyang. Instead, it was on par with Tianyang's strike. In the next moment, Tianyang's expression turned serious. Coincidentally, after experiencing life and death, my understanding of the Tao of life and death has increased. The primordial young emperor? Today I'll use you to test my sword. Tianyang smiled as a terrifying light burst out from the great void sword embryo in his hand. He struck out with his sword. The supreme thunderfire seal was destroyed. An emperor technique had been reduced to ashes by Tianyang's two swords. At the same time, Tianyang stepped into the void and performed the void step secret technique. His figure disappeared as he appeared behind the primordial young emperor and struck out with his sword. First sword, red spider lily blooms. Tianyang let out a low shout and slashed out with his sword. It was as if a beautiful flower had quietly bloomed on the shore of the Nether River. The power of the underworld gushed out. Endless power of death and destruction turned into a part of the sword and slashed at the primordial young emperor. The primordial young emperor's expression changed slightly. He quickly turned around and punched out. However, the young emperor of the primordial age, who had lost his emperor arts, was no match for the greatly improved Tianyang. He had no power to fight back. Boom! The primordial young emperor was sent flying by the sword. In the next instant, Tianyang appeared behind the primordial young emperor in a flash. The second sword, fleeting youth. Tianyang roared again and slashed out with his sword. This time, an extremely dazzling sword light flashed and disappeared. However, the sword had left a bone-deep wound on primordial young emperor's body. If it weren't for the fact that the primordial young emperor was formed from the power of the heavenly Tao, he would have been dead. Otherwise, the primordial young emperor would have been severely injured and lost the ability to fight. But, even so, the primordial young emperor was unable to fight back under Tianyang's attack. The primordial young emperor had already overdrawn his vital energy by forcefully activating his emperor arts, and his strength had declined. Now that he had encountered Tianyang, his strength had skyrocketed after experiencing a near-death experience. His strength had declined, while the other's strength had increased. When the grand primordial thunderflame divine king was young, he was abused by Heavenly Sun, a native of an insignificant great world. You can't take the second sword? At this moment, Tianyang raised his brows and let out a sigh. If that's the case, I'll finish you off as soon as possible. The third sword, reincarnation of life and death. The great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand had integrated the path of life and death and the power of the Saint Sword Tao. Originally, Tianyang's dual saint paths were incomplete and far from being the foundation of a saint path. However, at this moment Tianyang, both of his saint paths had been cultivated to the small perfection realm. When they were fused into the sword, they automatically turned into a terrifying sword technique. Red spider lily blooming, fleeting beauty, reincarnation of life and death. The third sword. The three sword techniques that Tianyang had comprehended at the brink of death. Even though the three sword techniques were still very rough and needed to be polished, the small perfection saintly way essence within them was enough to raise each sword technique to the upper heaven level. If Tianyang's path of life and death and the Saint Sword Tao improved, or if Tianyang perfected the three sword technique, then the three sword techniques would truly become a saint martial art. The Ascension Realm, the Saint Path, and the creation of a Saint martial art. If word got out, the entire universe would be in an uproar because of this. I'll send you on your way. Tianyang roared and slashed out with his sword. The sword that contained the path of life and death and the Saint Sword Tao struck out. The primordial young emperor formed a seal with both hands again, and the fire phoenix and the thunder dragon formed to block the sword. However, how could the sword that contained the dual saint paths be a match for the primordial young emperor, who was already at the end of his rope? It was just a collision. Boom! The primordial young emperor's last defense vanished. Even the primordial young emperor himself was annihilated by the sword. A strange mark was left behind. Tianyang raised his eyebrows and waved his hand to collect the mark. At this moment, the Dragon King's tomb finally collapsed. Tianyang returned to Heaven Continent. At the same time, the thunderclouds in the sky were also preparing for the final attack. It had been half a year since Tianyang accepted the inheritance. Half a year. Most of Heaven Continent had turned into a sea of blood. Starting from the southern wilderness, the spiritual martial domain, the central domain, the Shiyu domain, the firmament domain, the West Sea, the South Sea, the East Sea, they were all destroyed. At this moment, the remaining forces of the continent were all forced to the northernmost part of the continent by the Sea of Blood, where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was the poorest. The northern wilderness. However, that was in the past. Before he left, Tianyang had set up a spirit-gathering formation that covered the entire northern wilderness territory. Now, the northern wilderness territory might not be as good as the central region, but it was as good as the firmament territory. At this moment, in the northern wilderness, it's been half a year. I wonder how Tianyang is doing? The thunderclouds that covered the entire world also lasted for half a year. The old Dragon King paced slowly, as if he had aged a few decades. Beside him, Long Taiji also wore a weathered expression. Half a year. The Shadow Clan was destroyed. The Sure Clan was destroyed. The Ghost Clan was destroyed. The Buddhist sect in the Western Domain was destroyed. The Ninth Heaven Palace was destroyed. The Red Flame sect was destroyed. The ancient shrine was nowhere to be found. Countless forces fell in the sea of blood. At this moment, the people of Heaven Continent finally remembered how terrifying the Demon Clan was. 10,000 years ago, the Tianji Sword Emperor fought a bloody battle to stop the Demon Clan's attack. Now, the Demon Clan was back. How could Heaven Continent fight back? Boom! Boom! Meanwhile, a series of thunderbolts suddenly exploded in the sky. In the sky above the northern wilderness, the East Sea Dragon Palace spent a lot of effort to move it to the sky above the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum. Countless thunderbolts gathered and struck a person in the lightning. All the thunderclouds in the world seemed to be summoned. One after another, they unleashed extremely terrifying thunderstorms and charged towards that person. This is... The old Dragon King was stunned. He then looked at the handsome young man who stood proudly in the thunderstorm with a long sword in his hand. Tears of joy flowed down his face. He's back. He's back. In the sea of blood, the Demon Emperor's face was extremely gloomy. Chapter 865. He's back. In an instant, all the powerhouses on Heaven Continent, regardless of race, had the same thought. Half a year ago, Tianyang's demon venerable name had spread across the continent. In the Dragon King's tomb, the three Shadow Mouse brothers from the Shadow Clan, Bodhi Zi, Fu Ming Zi, Di Tian from the Shadow Clan, and even Qi Yen Supreme had all died at Tianyang's hands. When the Demon Emperor's clone had arrived, Tianyang had blocked the Demon Emperor's attack all by himself. He had even killed him. If Tianyang's strength had not exceeded the Demon Emperor's expectations and prompted him to attack in advance, the Demon Emperor would not have attacked earlier. Heaven Continent would have welcomed the demon race, who were more prepared and more aggressive. By then, Heaven Continent might not even be able to survive for half a year. He's back. Northern Wilderness Region, Blizzard State. It used to be the smallest and weakest country in the Northern Wilderness Region. Now, it had become the center of the entire Northern Wilderness Region. At the same time, it was also the center of survival for all the races on Heaven Continent. Ling Yuhan stood in the Tian family's house. She looked up at the sky and saw the godlike figure in the thunderstorm. Her eyes were filled with joy. Pass down my order. Demons, get ready for battle. Your demon venerable is back. Blizzard State Imperial Palace. The Blizzard State Imperial Palace had become the meeting hall for all the races on Heaven Continent. At the same time, in the meeting hall, the nine-tailed monster emperor, the Crimson Monster Emperor of the Sky-Howling Nine-Headed Hounds clan, and the clan leader of the Iron Cliff Tiger clan. The Dragon Clan, the Old Dragon King, the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace, and Long Taiji. The current leader of the human race, the Sword Saint Sect leader, Li Tianqian, who was at Heaven Ascension Stage 6. The Stone Clan, Shi Kaitian. The Spirit Clan, Ying Ling. The strongest and second strongest of the other forces were all gathered in the Imperial Palace. Tianyang, you're back. The nine-tailed monster emperor's eyes flickered with excitement. Tianyang had killed the Golden Flame Nine-Headed Lion Clan's Golden Flame ancestor, the Ancient Shrine's Grand Elder's avatar, and the Undying Venerable when he was in the Wasteland Demon region. At that time, he had just broken through half a step into the Heavenly Completion stage. Today, Tianyang was a well-known hero in the entire continent. Originally, Heaven Cloud's continent had been retreating in defeat against the Demon Clan's frenzied attack. Thanks to Tianyang's great formation and the Heavenly Tribulation thunderstorm, the expansion of the Blood Sea was stopped. Therefore, the morale of the entire Heaven continent was low. Even the nine-tailed monster emperor and the others were powerless. But now Tianyang's appearance was like a cardiac stimulant to everyone's hearts. The entire northern wilderness region was boiling with excitement. So what if he's back? The Demon Emperor is no longer the Demon Emperor from before. The Demon Emperor has ruled half of the Heaven continent. I'm afraid that he has already recovered to his peak strength. Shi Kaitian frowned. At this time, Li Tianqian from the human clan nodded. That's true. However, Tianyang had the strength to kill the Demon Emperor's avatar. Now that he's back, he must be stronger than before. So, it's time for us to counterattack, Li Tianqian said. Hearing that, everyone nodded. At this time, on the side. Northern Wilderness Region, Soaring Cloud Sect Leader, Yi Zhanling has arrived. A clear voice sounded. In the Imperial Palace, a group of Heavenly Completion Realm elites were suspicious, but they still let Yi Zhanling in. Yi Zhanling was wearing a green robe with a green longsword on his back. He walked in confidently. Transformed Origin Realm? Hearing that, Li Tianqian frowned. What are you doing here? I'm here to apply to the elders to explore the Blood Sea. Yi Zhanling smiled and said. Now, the elites have their own things to do. A weak person like me can't do anything. So, after thinking about it, this is the only way out. The Blood Sea is huge, but you don't know the details. At this time, a weak person like me is needed to go and investigate. Even if I die, I will try my best to leave some information. For the Heaven continent, I will give my last drop of blood, Yi Zhanling said. Hearing that, Li Tianqian and the others were slightly moved. Transformed Origin Realm. Such a cultivator was indeed very weak in front of them. However, such a person actually volunteered to explore the Blood Sea? To be precise, he was looking for death. However, looking at Yi Zhanling's determined expression, everyone did not know what to do. In the end, Li Tianqian sighed and said, Okay. They all knew that Yi Zhanling would not come back once he went. Hearing that, Yi Zhanling immediately showed a satisfied smile and left. Soaring Cloud Sect. Lord Sect Leader, are you really going? This war clearly has nothing to do with us at all, a cute-looking young girl said. Hearing this, Yi Zhanling smiled slightly. He looked at the figure in the sky who was enduring the lightning. Go. But if I don't come back, then I won't come back. Blood Sea. Following the Demon Emperor's order, the entire Blood Sea was boiling. Because the Blood Sea occupied too much area in the Heaven continent, the terrifying lightning that covered the entire Tianshao Great World bombarded the Blood Sea. Lightning with destruction at the same time with righteousness. Against the Blood Sea, it was the most lethal. The Demon Emperor is going to war. He will definitely kill Tianyang under the lightning and occupy the Heaven continent. The Demon Emperor is going to war. Not even a blade of grass will grow. Terrifying roars sounded in the blood sea. Demons, demon soldiers, demon generals, and even demon kings looked at the demon emperor in the sky with reverence and let out earth-shaking roars. The remaining demons in the heaven continent were far more than anyone in the heaven continent could imagine. Tianyang alone encountered and killed many of them. However, the demon kings who were still lingering at death's door were 10 times more than the ones Tianyang encountered. Through the power of the demon emperor, these demon kings had recovered 80% of their strength. Even in the demon realm, they were considered a strong team. Now, the demon emperor was going to lead this team and launch an attack. Tianyang, just you wait. I will use your blood to wash away the 2 humiliations. The demon emperor's eyes were burning with anger. In the next moment, he was the first to move from the center of the blood sea to 10,000 miles away. 9th level heaven ascension realm. He was only 1 cultivation level away from the peak. The demon emperor is going to war, not even a blade of grass will grow. As the last battle cry sounded, the demon emperor and his team were already close to the northern wilderness region. The demon emperor's expression changed slightly. He looked into the distance. One of them was holding a long sword in his hand, releasing rays of sword light that swept through the blood sea. That person seemed to have noticed the demon emperor's gaze. When he saw the demon emperor and his team, he instantly revealed a cheerful smile. In the next moment, he rushed over and released the aura of a peak-transformed Origin Realm cultivator. Chapter 866. Peak of the Origin Transformation Realm. Where did this ant come from? The demon emperor's expression was indifferent as he looked at Yi Zhanling, who had rushed over from afar and blocked his path. The aura of the peak of the Ascension Realm surged out from his body and fiercely suppressed Yi Zhanling. Boom! The bones in Yi Zhanling's body were suddenly oppressed by this aura and crackled. His entire body almost fell into the sea of blood. However, he still stood up straight and looked at the demon emperor with a trace of a bitter smile. I am the one who came to stop you. Yi Zhanling laughed loudly. Hearing this, not only the demon emperor, but the surrounding demons also revealed a trace of a strange expression and then coldly laughed. A peak of the Origin Transformation Realm, an ant that they could casually kill with a wave of their hand, actually dared to block in front of the demon emperor, who had almost devoured the entire sky continent and occupied it? Oh! The demon emperor's expression was cold and indifferent as he revealed a trace of ridicule. A peak of the Origin Transformation Realm dares to block this emperor? Of course. Yi Zhanling slightly smiled as the true yuan in his body wantonly surged. The aura of the peak of the Origin Transformation Realm was released. Looking for death. Emperor, you don't have to do anything, I can kill him. Hearing this, a demon king coldly laughed. His body suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Yi Zhanling as he punched out. Bang! Yi Zhanling's body was instantly sent flying like a cannonball. Blood spurted out from his mouth, but he still circulated his true yuan and stood in the sky. The aura on his body had already weakened to the extreme, but Yi Zhanling was still standing. Since I am already here, how can I let you pass? Yi Zhanling wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smoothed out the depression in his chest. In fact, I also know that compared to you demons, I am a weakling. Let me do it, it is better to let others do it. Perhaps the effect will be better. But, Yi Zhanling suddenly roared. His eyes were burning with flames as he stared at the demon emperor. Weakling. There was also the mission of the weak. Tianyang is transcending his tribulation, Ling Yuhan is leading the army, and the nine-tailed monster empress and Sky Blue College are all preparing for war. I'm just an ant at the peak of the transformed Origin Realm. I'm completely useless in this battle. I'm here to fulfill my mission. I am a weakling, so my mission as a weakling is to hold you back. Yi Zhanling roared. With a flash of his body, he used his movement technique and rushed out. Human ants, how dare you approach my emperor? At this moment, a cold snort was heard and another punch was thrown. Boom! Yi Zhanling spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backwards once again. However, the long sword in his hand pierced into the space and forcefully stopped him. At the sight of this, the face of the Demon King who had attacked could not help but change. What was up with this human? This punch of his could even kill a Dao Fire Realm. I've said it before. I'm weak. I only have one mission. To hold you back. Yi Zhanling laughed wildly. He did not even care about the blood that he spat out when he opened his mouth. He raised the long sword in his hand and it shone with a cold light. On his body, a ball of flames suddenly rose. Northern Wilderness Region, Soaring Cloud Sect Leader Yi Zhanling joined the battle. What bullshit, Soaring Cloud Sect Leader? Get lost. At this moment, a demon general behind the Demon Emperor laughed disdainfully and threw out a punch. The demon chi rolled and the demon light shot out in all directions. It fiercely hit Yi Zhanling's chest. Boom! Yi Zhanling's chest was directly hit by this punch. His entire body was sent flying and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. On the green robe there were terrifying blood stains. It was a ghastly sight. He's not dead yet? Are all the humans in Heaven Continent so resilient? Seeing this, the Demon General's face was filled with shock. Previously, the Demon King had only casually thrown a punch. The power was negligible. It was understandable that he did not kill this human. However, he had used all his strength to attack. He was a Demon General whose strength had reached the peak of level 3 of the Dao Fire Realm. All these years, in order to catch up to that junior, I have used all kinds of methods to increase my strength. I don't know how many thousands of my bones have been broken. My muscles have also been reorganized tens of thousands of times. Even if my talent is weak, I still have the strength to block in front of you. Yi Zhanling kept spitting out blood from his mouth. However, he still raised his long sword and charged towards the Demon Emperor and the rest. Dark rank martial technique. 7 stars sword link. A sword slashed out. 7 stars connected. 7 rays of sword light, like 7 bright stars, fiercely bombarded the Demon General's body. The Demon General groaned and took a step back. However, the 7 streaks of sword light only left 7 white scars on his black chest. I thought you were some peerless genius who could fight against those of a higher rank. Turns out you're still a weakling at the peak of the transformed Origin Realm. Feeling a slight pain coming from his chest, the Demon General suddenly laughed out loud. This little bit of strength is not even enough to kill a chicken, right? Get out of my way! The Demon General roared. Demonic chi surged out and charged towards Yi Zhanling again. Boom! At this moment, Yi Zhanling no longer had the strength to fight back. He could only take the beating passively. His whole body could only be sent flying by the punch. Blood gushed out from his mouth like a waterfall. However, after flying for 4 to 5 miles, Yi Zhanling stood up again. The armor on his body was completely destroyed, leaving only his torso covered with wounds. The green long sword in his hand was also cut in half in the previous battle. With me, here you don't think about getting past me. Yi Zhanling kept coughing out blood. His eyes were burning with a terrifying flame. In the next moment, blood flames burned on his body. Is this guy crazy? Seeing this, the Demon General was shocked. He knows that he can't defeat our Emperor, but he still burns his life? Once he burns, his soul will be destroyed. At this moment, the Demon Emperor said lightly, "All right, the game is over. A human, even if he has lofty aspirations, it is impossible to stop our footstep. If this goes on, Tianyang would have finished his tribulation." As if responding to the Demon Emperor's guess, the terrifying thunder in the sky finally exploded with the most extreme roar. As for that figure, the aura on his body also gradually increased dramatically. We must not let Tianyang succeed in his tribulation. Demon bastard, if you want to touch Tianyang, You have to walk over my dead body. Yi Zhanling laughed. The blood flames on his body burned to the extreme. Sword soaring cloud. Yi Zhanling roared and slashed out with the broken sword in his hand. Noisy. The demon emperor snorted and slapped out. Yi Zhanling's attack was instantly shattered. His torso was directly crippled and his hands were broken. The blood flames dissipated. Only one round. Yi Zhanling was heavily injured. Still not dead. It seems that this guy has some special physique. Seeing this, a demon king sneered. However, that's it. Now, it's time for me to kill this reckless human. Then, the demon king punched out. A fist flew out and attacked Yi Zhanling, who had no power to resist. However, just as the fist was about to turn Yi Zhanling into ashes, a terrifying energy suddenly erupted. The demon king spat out blood and flew out. He was instantly heavily injured, and in the eyes of the other demon kings, a figure suddenly appeared beside Yi Zhanling. You've done well enough, the figure said softly. A life force entered Yi Zhanling's body and hung on for a breath. Then, Yi Zhanling was kept in the Earth Emperor's spiritual medicine garden. As for you, Tianyang raised his head. In his eyes it was full of cold, killing intent. Chapter 867. Be prepared to die. Tianyang said coldly. The aura of the peak 6th level of Heaven Ascension Realm was released from his body. In an instant, the group of demon kings beside Demon Emperor took a few steps back, spitting out a mouthful of black demon blood, and almost fell into the sea of blood. One by one, their faces revealed an incomparably shocked expression. It was just a sentence. They were shaken to the point where they vomited blood and retreated. They almost fell down and became part of the sea of blood. Just how powerful was Tianyang's strength? Seeing this, the demon emperor's face suddenly turned gloomy. He never thought that the demon kings on his side would be so embarrassed by Tianyang's shout. Damn it! How dare you make me a fool of myself in front of my emperor? Go to hell, brat! At this time, a demon king flew into a rage out of humiliation, roared, and charged toward Tianyang. The peak of the 6th level of Heaven Ascension Realm, the same level as Tianyang, surged out of his demonic chi and charged toward Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's face turned slightly cold, while the demon emperor's face suddenly changed. Demon Sword King, stop! I know you want to kill this arrogant guy with your own hands, but this human, it's better for me to severely injure him first. The Demon Sword King smiled coldly, and the demonic chi in his hand turned into a long demon sword, slashing out. The demonic chi condensed into a demonic light, shattering the void. However, seeing this, Tianyang was expressionless. A ray of light flashed in his eyes, and with a finger in place of a sword, he pointed out. A ray of sword chi crossed the void and charged toward the Demon Sword King. You want to block this king's sword with a single finger? Even if you are an opponent that the Demon Emperor values, you are not necessarily too arrogant. Seeing this, the Demon Sword King flew into a rage. Since he invaded Heaven Continent 80,000 years ago and was sealed in a deep sleep, no one dared to be so arrogant in front of him. Even the great emperor who sealed him 80,000 years ago would never dare to be so arrogant in front of him. Devil Flame Frenzy Blood Slaughter. Demon Sword King roared. The demon sword in his hand ignited with flames as he ruthlessly slashed out. Boom! The sword finger and the demon sword collided violently. Ripples spread out in all directions. Damn it! Seeing this, the demon emperor's pupils constricted. Just as he took a step forward, Tianyang smiled coldly. His finger suddenly changed from defense to offense and pointed out again. Die! Tianyang said indifferently. The sword finger that contained the life and death Tao instantly appeared in the center of the battle. As for the demonic Sword King's demonic flame blood massacre, because of the addition of the life-extinguishing sword finger, it instantly shattered. What? Seeing this, Demon Sword King's complexion greatly changed. He looked at his devil flame mad blood massacre in disbelief, revealing an inconceivable expression. How could this be? The Devil Flame Frenzy Blood Massacre was capable of heavily injuring even an expert at the 6th level of the Heaven Ascension realm, so wouldn't it be extremely easy to deal with a Heaven Ascension realm expert that had just overcome the heavenly tribulation? However, it seemed that Tianyang could easily deal with him. Don't even think about moving. Just as the Demon Emperor was about to make his move, a terrifying soul force suddenly supported the Demon Emperor's body. Dubhi, Merak, Fekta, Migres, and the 5th star that had been opened after half a year of tribulation, Alioth. 7 stars secret technique, open 5 stars. Stars imprisonment. With the power of 5 stars, the star's imprisonment instantly turned into an indestructible cage that suppressed the Demon Emperor within. At this time, the Demon Sword King also ignited his demonic chi and risked his life to slash out with the demon sword in his hand. He didn't believe that a human who had just transcended the heavenly tribulation would be able to defeat him after destroying his Devil Flame Frenzy Blood Massacre so easily. That finger strike is definitely his strongest martial skill. As long as I can block this move, the rest of the battle will be under my control, the Demon Sword King said confidently in his heart. The demon sword in his hand blocked in front of him as he circulated his demonic chi. Rolling defense was released. Seeing this, Tianyang revealed an inexplicable smile, while the Demon Emperor crazily attacked the star's imprisonment. His pupils shrank and his eyes were about to crack. Demon Sword King, quickly retreat from me. Don't worry, my Emperor, a mere sword finger from a human, no matter how strong it is, it's impossible. The Demon Sword King shook his head and said confidently. However, he hadn't finished speaking, and even his head was still facing the Demon Emperor's direction, but he didn't realize that his devil sword had already broken into 2. Then, what broke into 2 was his head. His body and soul. Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded, and the entire blood sea shook. Countless demon kings and demon generals were horrified, and the Demon Emperor was burning with anger. The Demon Sword King's body suddenly exploded. He turned into a cloud of blood mist. He had completely disappeared from this world. 80,000 years ago, the Demon Sword King who had brought endless calamity to the Heaven Ascension realm had fallen. This guy, how could he be so strong? At this time, countless demon kings' faces changed, and they were scared out of their wits by Tianyang. One finger killed a demon king. Was this strength really something that a Heaven Ascension realm human who had just passed the Heaven Ascension tribulation could display? Worthy of being the strongest heaven's pride in the history of the Heaven Ascension realm, Tianyang. At this time, the Demon Emperor spoke. His tone was cold, and with an unparalleled terrifying killing intent, he stared at Tianyang. With such strength, no wonder you could cause a great calamity that covered the entire world. The Demon Sword King's death in your hands is not unjust. The Demon Emperor's tone was indifferent. However, hearing this, Tianyang suddenly raised his eyebrows. He noticed it. The Devil Emperor had already stopped attacking the stellar confinement, even though the stellar confinement couldn't last more than a few attacks from the Devil Emperor. But now, the Demon Emperor, who was in the star's imprisonment, seemed to be getting fainter and fainter? It seems that you are also careful. You actually know to leave a clone to prevent unexpected failure. Tianyang smiled. At this point, if he still couldn't see it, he would be a fool. The Demon Emperor was now. Clearly, it was not the main body, but a clone that could exchange with the main body at any time. Otherwise, how could Yi Zhanling be able to withstand the Demon Emperor's punch and not die? Yes, it is this Emperor's clone. Originally, this Emperor's clone was enough to sweep across the Heaven Ascension realm, but who would have thought that a guy like you would appear? The Demon Emperor sneered, his face full of arrogance. However, it doesn't matter. 3 days later, this Emperor's main body will come out of the mountain. At that time, no matter what methods you Heaven Ascension realm have, my demon race will definitely wipe you out. 3 days later, your demon race will also have to consider how to deal with a sword emperor. The demon emperor and Tianyang, one in front and one behind, both spoke in disdain. And at this moment, the demon emperor suddenly roared. Hurry up! Let's go! The next moment, Tianyang's star strangulation was activated. The demon emperor's clone was instantly strangled to nothing. And at this time, those demon kings who had long been stunned woke up from a dream. One by one, they were like stray dogs, frantically fleeing in all directions. The demon emperor was actually a clone, and now, even his clone was destroyed? The demon sword king was also dead. Were they, the demon kings, staying here to deliver food? Want to run? However, looking at the group of demons fleeing in all directions, Tianyang's face revealed a cold and cruel smile. Is Heaven Ascension Realm a place where you bastards can come and go as you wish? Since you're here, leave something behind. Tianyang smiled slightly, clenched his right fist, and 108 ancestral dragon patterns lit up. The ancestral dragon's power, which was dozens of times stronger than before, crazily surged out. Heaven rank upper grade martial skill. Chapter 868. Dragon Emperor's Divine Fist. Tianyang roared, and the ancestral dragon's power surged out toward the demon kings. Seeing this, the terrifying demon kings who had once massacred an entire realm were scared out of their wits. The power of this punch was terrifying. Compared to the move he used to kill the demon sword king, it was much stronger. Damn it! I don't believe that a human in his 20s can kill the demon sword king. The Dragon Emperor's mystical fist was extremely fast. It was so fast that even the strongest demon king could not dodge it. Seeing this, the demon kings turned around, their faces filled with rage. Great demon devouring hand! A demon king roared, and the devouring power merged with the demonic chi, turning into a demonic hand that covered the sky and slammed toward Tianyang. It's the devouring demon king. The devouring demon king is known as the being closest to the demon emperor. Although he has only recovered half of his cultivation base, he is still much stronger than the demon sword king. With the devouring demon king here, this demon sword king or whatever will die. Seeing that the demon king had made his move, the group of demon kings became excited. The devouring demon king. In the ancient times, he was second only to the demon emperor. He had led the demon race to conquer one realm after another in the Tianshao Great World. If the true martial dragon emperor had not appeared out of nowhere and suppressed him, the devouring demon king would have conquered Heaven Continent. Although the devouring demon king only had half of his peak ascension realm LV8 strength left, he was still very strong. He could still unleash great power. Boy! Die! The devouring demon king's face was ferocious as he controlled the great demon devouring hand and slammed it toward Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. The Dragon Emperor's divine fist did not show any signs of retreating. Instead, it sped up and collided with the demonic hand. Boom! There was a terrifying explosion, and the entire blood sea churned as waves of blood soared into the sky. Streams of terrifying devouring power gushed out from the great demon devourer's hand, attempting to devour Tianyang's ancestral dragon power. However, Tianyang's Dragon Emperor's mystical fist was not damaged at all. Instead, with the strength of the ancestral dragon's body, he was able to suppress the great demon devourer palm. How is this possible? Seeing this, countless demon kings were dumbfounded. That was the demon devourer king, the invincible demon devourer king who had swept through Heaven Continent in ancient times. The great devil heaven devouring hand was the most powerful attack of the fiend devourer king, yet it had been blocked by a mere human. You can actually block this king's great demonic heaven-swallowing hand? Humph, as expected of an existence that even the emperor has to pay attention to. However, if you want to kill us, you're still a few years too short. Great devil swallowing heaven hand, 9 devils lock the heavens. Lord Devourer's pitch-black face darkened, revealing a hideous expression that did not look human. Demonic aura surged out, and the great demonic sky-devouring hand that had been suppressed burst out with dazzling light again. However, at this moment Tianyang moved. Time is of the essence. I can't be bothered to continue playing with you. Tianyang shook his head and took a step forward. Void Step's secret skill. The space distorted, and Tianyang appeared directly in front of the great demonic sky-devouring hand that had once again used a powerful superpower. He waved his hand casually. The Dragon Emperor's divine fist seemed to have been injected with some terrifying energy, and it erupted with a terrifying power that directly shattered the great demonic sky-devouring hand. With the great demonic sky-devouring hand broken, Lord Devourer spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to activate his demonic aura to counterattack, Tianyang waved his hand again. How is this possible? Lord Devourer's eyes narrowed to the extreme, and he roared in shock and fear. Then, he was hit by the slap. In midair, he exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The remaining demonic aura was also devoured by Tianyang's heavenly sword. Seeing this, all the demon kings were stunned. The invincible demon devourer king who had swept through heaven continent in ancient times. Tianyang had actually killed him. He exploded with a slap. Run! At this moment, fear finally overwhelmed these demon kings who had been domineering and tyrannical in heaven continent during various eras. However, looking at the demon kings fleeing in all directions, Tianyang's eyes flashed coldly. The demon race did not invade Tianshao Great World every 10,000 years. However, heaven continent had a history of billions of years, and the demon race's invasion had also been going on for billions of years. These demon kings in front of him. In the history of heaven continent, they had slaughtered countless people, plundered countless riches, and turned many places into barren lands. Some places had recovered to their original state with the passage of time, but some places were still invaded by the demon race and turned into barren lands. For example, the nest of 1,000 demons. In a flash, Tianyang disappeared on the spot. In the next instant, he appeared in front of a demon king who was at Heaven Ascension Stage 7. Get out of my way! Seeing Tianyang appear in front of him, the demon king's expression changed drastically. With a roar, he threw a punch. He did not have extravagant hopes that this punch could kill Tianyang, but he only hoped. His punch could delay him for a while, giving him time to escape. However, in the face of this Heaven Ascension Stage 7's all-out punch, Tianyang only swept an indifferent glance. A ball of true flames of destruction burned. Boom! Starting from the fist, a black flame ignited. In the next instant, it spread to the demon king's entire body. Ah! Screams came out of the demon king's throat. His entire body was burned by these flames until he was like a man on fire. A few seconds later, the screams disappeared. That demon king, who had a considerable status among the demon kings, was completely dead. Even the demon Qi was devoured by Tianyang. This scene made the other demon kings tremble in fear, and fear rose in them. Run! A terrified scream was heard. However, the demon king who made the sound was burned to ashes by the flames in the next moment. At the same time, a sword light also appeared between the brows of another demon king. Tianyang's figure flashed continuously above this sea of blood. And every time his figure flickered, he would kill at least one demon king. Some demon kings were smart. Seeing that the situation was not good, they immediately escaped into the sea of blood. Even if this sea of blood would cause them some injuries, it was much better than dying in Tianyang's hands. However, Tianyang was not to be trifled with. Demon kings who could escape into the sea of blood and survive were ultimately in the minority. The vast majority of the others turned into a bloody mist under Tianyang's sword or fist, becoming a part of the Skycloud sword. As expected, after advancing to Heaven Ascension, It's too difficult for the Skycloud sword to evolve. Tianyang sensed the state of the longsword in his hand, and shook his head slightly. And at this moment, in front of him, the 4 stars formed an extremely terrifying soul cage. It imprisoned the remaining demon king at the peak of Heaven Ascension Stage 7. You should die too, Tianyang said indifferently. In the next moment, the 7 stars' secret technique bloomed. Boom! In the second year of the demon race's great calamity, Demon Venerable Tianyang successfully transcended the tribulation. Chapter 869. Killing 100 Demon Kings. Tianyang did not return to the northern wilderness region immediately after completing this feat. Instead, his face darkened as he looked at the Blood Sea below. Compared to the boundless energy contained in the Blood Sea, these 100 Demon Kings were like stones in a desert. More than half of the heaven continent's realms and heaven and earth spiritual chi have been devoured by the Blood Sea, Tianyang muttered to himself as he sighed in his heart. This Devil Emperor was truly an ambitious and ruthless person. Previously, he was so confident that he would lead countless demon kings into battle, but he still only used a clone to lead a group of demon kings. If the battle went smoothly, this clone would automatically replace the main body to welcome the fruits of victory. If the heavenly sun were to appear, he could immediately sacrifice this clone, even if the demon king would die in the process. Although the demon kings were strong, they were not too important in the eyes of the demon emperor who had the endless Blood Sea. As for the clone, it was just a clone anyway. Although it was a little special, it did not matter. What was truly important was the Blood Sea that occupied more than half of the heaven continent and part of the ocean. Most of the demon kings only had a little bit of strength left. Perhaps because of the great destruction of their civilization, the demon race did not send any powerhouses this time. These demon kings were all defeated soldiers. Although they were still strong, they were not important. As for the Blood Sea, if Tianyang guessed correctly, it was the demon emperor's weapon factory and raw material source for endless demon soldiers, demon generals, and even demon kings. Decisive in killing. As expected of the demon emperor, Tianyang sighed. Although the demon emperor was a mortal enemy, Tianyang could not help but sigh. Although the earthly emperor was using the demon emperor in the earthly emperor's small world, he was the gatekeeper of the inheritance. However, the demon emperor was also taking advantage of this fact to wait for the earthly sovereign to die. After enduring for countless years, the demon emperor finally had an opportunity. If not for Tianyang's sudden appearance, the demon emperor would have already descended on the heaven continent with his complete body. He had endured for billions of years, and even if he was heavily injured, he could still hide for a few more years. With such methods, he could be called an ambitious and ruthless character. However, we should hurry back now. Yi Zhanling won't be able to hold on for that long, Tianyang muttered to himself. He did not forget that there was still a heavily injured person lying in the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. A hero. The energy in the Blood Sea was too heterogeneous and impure. Even the sky above the Blood Sea was in a mess. Coupled with the boundless devil chi in the Blood Sea, even if Tianyang had the materials from the earthly emperor's spiritual herbal garden, they couldn't refine pills above the Blood Sea. Even for Tianyang, it was difficult for him to fully grasp every trace of energy in alchemy. If a little bit of devil chi entered the medicinal pill, Yi Zhanling would be finished. Tianyang didn't know that because he had finished his tribulation, he immediately used the Void Step secret technique and rushed to where Yi Zhanling was. What kind of waves had he caused in the northern wilderness region? Heavenly Sun, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 6th level of the Heaven Ascension stage, executed the void treading secret art. It was practically no different from teleportation. The crowd only saw that when the lightning tribulation disappeared, the figure bathed in lightning also abruptly vanished. At first, it was nothing, but as time passed, Tianyang still didn't appear. The entire northern wilderness region was shaken. Snowgale State, Imperial Palace. At this moment, there were far more people in the imperial palace than when Tianyang appeared. Ling Yuhan, who had actually succeeded part of the Demon King's power and was in charge of the demon race's military power, also appeared in this meeting. Yuhan, you're the closest person to Tianyang. Even you can't contact Tianyang? The nine-tailed demon king frowned and said. Heavenly Sun's disappearance lasted for half a day. After all, although the demon kings were extremely weak in front of Tianyang, killing them one by one took time. 100 demon kings were not 100 cabbages. In other words, it might take even longer to harvest 100 cabbages. I can't contact him. But with Master's strength, dealing with a small heavenly tribulation shouldn't be a problem. Ling Yuhan shook her head, but she waved her little fist to express her strong confidence in Tianyang. Seeing this, the nine-tailed demon king could only shake her head. Indeed, a married daughter was like spilled water. Her own daughter couldn't get rid of it. Humph! A small heavenly tribulation? It's not that I'm looking down on Tianyang. After all, he's someone who can attract such a terrifying heavenly tribulation. But if this heavenly tribulation that covered the entire Tianshao Great World is a small heavenly tribulation, then won't Tianyang reach Wu Zun's level once he breaks through? At this moment, an ear-piercing voice was heard. An old man with white eyebrows sneered as he looked at the nine-tailed demon king and Ling Yuhan. Seeing this, the nine-tailed demon king frowned. It was Li Tianchen from the Sword Saint sect. At the same time, he was also the most powerful person in the human race. Although Shi Kaitian was more powerful than him, he still had the most authority in the northern wilderness region. Maybe he's already dead in the heavenly tribulation. Not even his bones are left. Li Tianchen sneered. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan slammed the table and stood up, glaring at him angrily. You! However, the others in the palace couldn't help but nod in agreement. Li Tianchen has a point. After all, that's a heavenly tribulation that covered the entire world. If this heavenly tribulation didn't only target Tianyang, then it would be another civilization that was destroyed. Can a heavenly tribulation of this level really be passed by a human? There were people whispering endlessly. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan's beautiful face also became extremely ugly. She didn't expect this at all. This group of people actually dared to say such words in such a situation. Lower your voice. We haven't even found his bones yet. Maybe he really turned into ashes. No, he succeeded. Someone deliberately raised his voice. After all, Li Tianchen was the most powerful person in the northern wilderness region. There were too many people who wanted to suck up to him. When they saw that Li Tianchen was unhappy with Tianyang, they naturally leaned towards Li Tianchen like fence-sitters. As for Tianyang's achievements, were they important? You! Ling Yuhan's eyes were about to spit fire. This group of people, no, the most powerful people in the Sky Continent. How could they be so magnanimous? Most of the people present reacted the same way as Li Tianchen. Only Shi Kaitian and a few others remained silent. But indeed, not many people thought so. Tianyang was still alive. You what? However, even though they had the upper hand, someone still sneered. You're just a guy who just stepped into Heaven Ascension Stage LV1. What right do you have to speak here? If the nine-tailed demon emperor didn't bring you here, you wouldn't even have the right to step into this place. How dare you be so disrespectful? Men, chase her out. That person snorted coldly and said. This person was the most powerful remaining Ghost Clan member. His cultivation was at Heaven Ascension Stage LV4. He was extremely displeased with Tianyang's side who had killed Ghostly. Now that Tianyang's life was unknown, the forces that went against Tianyang were extremely happy. Naturally, they were unscrupulous in attacking the people on Tianyang's side. Seeing this, Ling Yuhan's expression changed slightly. The nine-tailed demon emperor's expression also darkened. Gui Yin, you're meddling too much. Humph? Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you're a demon emperor. You're not leaving, are you? Then I, Guiyin, will personally chase you away. Guiyin sneered, stood up, and walked toward Ling Yuhan. The pressure of Heaven Ascension Stage LV4 gushed out violently. Seeing this, the nine-tailed demon emperor suddenly stood up. However, at this moment, a light laugh was heard. What? You're bullying your disciple when your master isn't here? Hearing that, apart from a small portion of people, everyone had puzzled looks on their faces. Who was it? Who dared to trespass here? Hearing this voice, a few people, the nine-tailed demon emperor and Shi Kaitian immediately froze and turned their heads to look. As for Ling Yuhan, her whole body shook and her eyes were moist. Who? Who dares to speak like this in front of me? However, Guiyin still didn't understand what had happened and roared arrogantly. In the next moment, a huge palm suddenly appeared in his field of vision. Boom! Guiyin's whole body was fiercely slapped away by this slap. At the same time, a young figure also stepped through the door and entered. It's me. Chapter 870. With one slap, Guiyin, the only survivor of the Ghost Clan, was sent flying. Although Heaven Continent did not have a system to treat survivors well, everyone was still in disbelief when they saw Guiyin being sent flying with one slap. No matter what, Guiyin was a Heaven Ascension Stage Level 4 elite. Such an expert could be considered as one of the top experts in the Northern Wilderness region. In the end, he was still sent flying with one slap. Who are you? Due to the light, the crowd did not see Tianyang's face clearly at first. Their faces darkened as they spoke. However, just as Tianyang took a few steps forward, Ling Yuhan immediately pounced on Tianyang and hugged him tightly. Master, you're finally back. Then, drops of tears flowed out. Tianyang also stood where he was. He raised his hand and patted Ling Yuhan's head. He knew what the girl had been enduring for the past 6 months. Back then, Ling Yuhan had been depressed to the extreme because of the 1-year agreement. However, at that time, Tianyang's life was not in danger, so Ling Yuhan endured it. But now, although it was only half a year, however, this half a year was filled with thunder, fire, wind, and calamity. To put it bluntly, Tianyang was always in danger of death. How could Ling Yuhan bear with this? In the Dragon King's tomb, except for a very short period of time, Ling Yuhan was just a burden by Tianyang's side. Although Tianyang did not mind, Ling Yuhan felt extremely uncomfortable in her heart. Therefore, Ling Yuhan took over the nine-tailed demon emperor's military power and commanded the demon clan's army to guard the only remaining northern wilderness region. After half a year, it was unknown how heavy the burden on the young girl's shoulders was. Now that Tianyang had appeared, this burden was immediately relieved. She just wanted to throw herself into Tianyang's arms and not let go for the rest of her life. Alright, there are still so many people here. After hugging for a few minutes, Tianyang finally opened his mouth. Ling Yuhan suddenly woke up and hurriedly let go. However, her left hand was still holding on to Tianyang's right hand, unwilling to let go. At this moment, Li Tianchen of the Sword Saint sect, who was sitting at the head of the table, felt his face twitch. Clearly, he had entered a state of incomparable rage. Who are you? If you can't explain it, there are so many experts here who are not to be trifled with. Li Tianchen suppressed the anger in his heart and growled. Hearing this, Tianyang lifted his head and glanced indifferently at Li Tianchen. The 6th level of the reaching heaven state. Among the 100 demon kings he had killed earlier, even the weakest one was at this realm. I'm someone you can't afford to offend. As soon as he said this, the entire palace fell silent. Countless people widened their eyes and looked at Tianyang in disbelief. They didn't know who this guy was, but he actually dared to say such words to the strongest person in the Sky Continent? Arrogant! Li Tianchen's face instantly turned ugly when he heard this. Ever since Li Tianchen became the person in charge of the Sky Continent half a year ago, when had he ever been spoken to so rudely? The old Dragon King, Shi Kai Tian, did not care about the affairs of the Sky Continent. The Dragon King and the Nine-Tailed Monster King were no match for him. His words were the imperial edict of the Sky Continent. Today, someone actually dared to speak to him like this? Disgraceful. Finally, someone said what Li Tianqian wanted to say. Li Tianqian looked at the person approvingly and slowly stood up. I don't know who you are, but you suddenly barged into the meeting and sent a general of the Sky Continent flying. I suspect that you're not from the Demon Clan. Li Tianqian said coldly. The Nine-Tailed Monster King's face turned cold when she heard this. This was a heart-wrenching remark. Everyone else's face turned gloomy. However, at this moment, Tianyang spoke calmly. You've been watching me for so long, now that you've seen the real deal, don't you recognize me? The experts in the palace were stunned when they heard this. Then, someone took a closer look at Tianyang. Tianyang was very different from when he was in the Barren Monster region. After all, Tianyang was only 19 or 20 years old when he was in the Barren Monster region. Even for mortals, he was still growing. Moreover, Tianyang was a cultivator. After such a long time, Tianyang's appearance had changed a little. In addition, after going through the tribulation and tempering his body again and again, Tianyang's face had become even more perfect. Cultivation was to make oneself stronger and more perfect. Naturally, one's appearance would change a little. Now, Tianyang's hands were like white jade and his eyes were like stars. Although he was not much different from before, he was more perfect and flawless. When he stood next to Ling Yuhan, they looked like a pair of immortal lovers. These people were not familiar with Tianyang to begin with. Now that Tianyang's appearance had changed, they naturally could not recognize him. Only a few people who were familiar with Tianyang, such as Ling Yuhan and the Nine-Tailed Monster Emperor, could recognize Tianyang at a glance. You're Tianyang? Someone exclaimed in shock. When the others heard it, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The crowd was in an uproar. Countless people took a closer look at Tianyang and felt the aura exuding from Tianyang's body. Their expressions changed slightly. Indeed, he was Tianyang. His appearance could change, his height could change, and his clothes could change. However, his aura could not be easily changed. However, when they looked at Tianyang, their expressions were a little strange. Previously, they were still discussing whether Tianyang was dead or not. Most of them were mercilessly mocking him. In the next second, Tianyang slapped Gui Yin away and fought against Li Tianqian. He appeared in front of them as if he had returned. Humph. So what if you're Tianyang? However, at this time, Li Tianqian's face was still gloomy. Half a year of power. Li Tianqian had long been infatuated with the taste of power. Now that Tianyang had appeared out of nowhere, Li Tianqian felt a sense of danger. You succeeded in transcending the tribulation, but you didn't appear immediately. What did you do? Li Tianqian said. Hearing that, Tianyang smiled faintly. I fought with the Demon Emperor to save people and killed 100 demon kings. That's all. Hearing that, the crowd fell silent. Everyone looked at Tianyang with their mouths agape. This guy, he dared to brag in front of Li Tianqian? Killed 100 demon kings? Even if you're talented, you've only just transcended the tribulation, killed 100 demon kings, and fought with the demon emperor? How is that possible? How dare you? Hearing that, Li Tianqian's face turned gloomy. Now that the enemy is right in front of you, why don't you immediately return to your subordinates and listen to orders? Instead, you talk nonsense to me. I suspect that the time you disappeared is because you went to the demon race. Killed 100 demon kings? What a joke! Li Tianqian snorted. In the next moment, the aura of a Ascension Stage Level 6 exploded. Other than Shi Kai Tian and a few others, as well as Ling Yuhan who was protected by Tianyang, everyone felt difficulty breathing. This was the pressure of a Ascension Stage Level 6 elite. So, you're not convinced? Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and smiled faintly. Hearing that, Li Tianqian snorted coldly. Not convinced? What power do you have to make me not convinced? That's good. If you're not convinced, then I have a reason to mess with you. Tianyang smiled faintly and activated the divine wilderness heaven spirit art. Majestic true essence gushed out. In an instant, a terrifying true essence giant hand condensed in mid-air. Feeling the information from the true essence giant hand, everyone could not help but be stunned. Li Tianqian snorted coldly and threw out a sword. Arrogant brat. Boom! The flying sword and the giant hand collided. In the end, it was destroyed. Boom! There was another loud bang. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the dignified Li Tianqian. Chapter 871. The great Li Tianqian was actually slapped by Tianyang. He was suppressed under the ground. Seeing the situation, even the old Dragon King, Long Taiji, Shi Kaitian, and the others who had some understanding of Tianyang were appalled. Li Tianqian's true strength was only at the 6th level of Heaven Ascension Realm and was far from being the strongest expert in the Heaven Continent. But he was still one of the strongest experts. During the retreat, he had killed a few demon kings who had yet to fully recover their strength. Right now, he was actually suppressed by Tianyang with a single slap? Bah, bastard! There was a horrifying angry roar that burst out from the ground. Immediately after, Li Tianqian's eyes were blood-red as he jumped out from the pit and glared at Tianyang. How dare you do this to this seat? You are courting death. Li Tianqian yelled out and a long sword appeared in his hand. Immediately after, he vanished on the spot. Sword Saint Royal Sky. In the next second, Li Tianqian appeared in front of Tianyang. The peak-grade spirit artifact longsword in his hand was emitting the most powerful radiance. Seeing the situation, Tianyang's expression didn't change as he let out an indifferent smile. Back at the Dragon Emperor tomb, he had seen Li Fuqian using this move. But Li Fuqian used the Sword Saint power, while Li Tianqian didn't. The current Tianyang even dared to face the Sword Saint Royal Sky that contained the Sword Saint power, let alone this sword that was condensed from Li Tianqian's own qi energy. Insignificant skill. Tianyang said indifferently and waved his hand. A monstrous qi energy condensed and formed another qi energy giant hand. Boom! That sword and this giant hand clashed violently. Within the Snow Gale Empire's royal palace, there was an extremely terrifying spatial ripple that spread out in all directions. Had it not been for the Snow Gale Empire's royal palace that had been reinforced by various factions, the royal palace would have collapsed from the clash of these two powerhouses. Seeing this, the old Dragon King and Shi Kaitian's face darkened. No matter what, Tianyang had foiled the Demon Emperor's schemes time and time again. Even if he was in the wrong, he shouldn't have acted like this. What's more, it was Tianyang's freedom to go wherever he wanted. Previously, it was Gue Yin who dealt with Ling Yuhan first. Even if it was Shi Kaitian, if it was Tianyang, he would have done the same. What did Tianyang do wrong? The purpose of their meeting this time was to calm the Tianyang people down, not to deal with the Tianyang. Li Tianqian, enough! Shi Kaitian suddenly stood up. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a loud explosion rang out. Boom! Shi Kaitian's pupils shrank and his face was filled with anger. Li Tianqian was so arrogant that he didn't even care when Shi Kaitian spoke. However, in the next moment, Shi Kaitian's line of sight suddenly passed by a person. Bang! The sound of a heavy object colliding rang out. Shi Kaitian turned his head to look, and suddenly, his pupils shrank. It was a figure passing through. It wasn't Tianyang. It was Li Tianqian. How is this possible? Even Shi Kaitian was shocked. He knew that Tianyang's talent was unparalleled and that he could kill the Demon Emperor's doppelganger. However, he had paid a huge price. No matter what, Li Tianqian was still a powerful figure. How could he be slapped into the wall by Tianyang? This was even more shocking than when Tianyang slapped Li Tianqian into the ground. Previously, Li Tianqian had underestimated Tianyang and didn't use his full strength. It wasn't impossible that Tianyang's sudden move would succeed. But now, Li Tianqian had attacked with his full strength in anger. Yet, he still couldn't change the outcome? Peak of Ascension Stage 6? At this moment, the old Dragon King's shocked voice rang out. Shi Kaitian's pupils shrank rapidly. Although the Shi clan's soul power wasn't strong, they still had basic senses. They hadn't noticed it in the previous battle, but now that they sensed it, Tianyang's aura was completely exposed. Tianyang didn't intend to hide it from the start. Damn you! 9 swords set heaven and earth. At this moment, another angry roar erupted. Li Tianqian's figure suddenly shot out of the hole, the supreme-grade spirit longsword in his hand releasing an unparalleled aura. Li Tianqian, that's enough. Shi Kaitian was furious. However, Li Tianqian didn't care. He looked at Tianyang with eyes full of anger. Ha ha! Looking at Li Tianqian, who was charging towards him, Tianyang smiled faintly. The true origin giant hand from before attacked once again. Boom! 9 swords, before even one of them could be used, it was destroyed by the giant hand. Tianyang controlled the true origin giant hand and grabbed Li Tianqian as if he was taking something out of his pocket. You think you're fit to be the leader of the alliance with this kind of strength and temperament? Tianyang said faintly, a trace of disappointment on his face. As the current leader of the Sky Continent, it wasn't wrong for Li Tianqian to be a little arrogant. However, if he was arrogant, he had to have the strength to match his arrogance. However, it was obvious that Li Tianqian wasn't qualified in this aspect. Li Tianqian was caught by Tianyang and had difficulty breathing. He forcefully used his true origin to open up a gap and roared angrily. Tianyang, now that the enemy is here, you dare to attack me? Don't tell me you don't want the Sky Continent to recover? Hearing this, Shi Kaitian's face changed drastically. This was a heart-wrenching argument. At this moment, Gui Yin, who was sent flying by the slap, came back to his senses and shouted angrily. Tianyang, how dare you attack Alliance leaderly in front of the enemy and injure me, you? If it wasn't for the enemy, the two of you would already be dead. Tianyang looked at him indifferently. Suddenly, Gui Yin felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body froze and he couldn't say the remaining few words. As for the others? Even if they didn't like Tianyang and had a deep hatred for him, at this moment, they didn't dare to say a word. If I don't open my mouth first, which insect dares to make a sound? The Tianyang at this moment had such an unparalleled domineering aura. It was because he had the strength to match it. Even Li Tianqian was speechless. His face was full of shock. Wasn't this Tianyang a little too arrogant? Didn't he see that the old Dragon King and Shi Kaitian were here too? Those two were the white jade pillars that held up Heaven Cloud's continent, the purple golden beams that supported the sea. Now that Li Tianqian's life wasn't in danger, he was relieved. He smiled coldly and didn't say a word. This was the meeting place of the alliance. Tianyang barged in and even hit Gui Yin, injuring the leader of the alliance several times. Shi Kaitian and the old Dragon King would definitely not sit by and do nothing. Li Tianqian didn't see the reaction of Shi Kaitian and the others. However, the two of them were already in a state of shock. There was no reaction on their faces at all. The palace was silent for a few seconds. Then, Shi Kaitian's face was gloomy as he stood up. Seeing this, Li Tianqian was overjoyed. It was finally here. The 9 Heaven Supremes were finally going to teach this arrogant guy a lesson. Bang bang. Shi Kaitian's steps were very big. In a short while, he came to the center of Tianyang and Li Tianqian. Then, he approached Tianyang. Li Tianqian's heart was also thumping. Quick, give him a slap. At this moment, Shi Kaitian suddenly knelt down on one knee. A muffled but loud voice resounded through the clouds. Shi Kaitian greets the Demon Lord. P.S. Today is the final exam, so I can only update twice. I'm really sorry. Chapter 872. Greetings, Demon Venerable. Sure Kaitian's voice sounded like it was going to shatter the 9 heavens. In an instant, everyone was stunned except for a few people. At this moment, the old Dragon King also stood up. Li Tianqian hurriedly turned to look. Sure Kaitian was a rock, and his brain wasn't working well. Perhaps Tianyang had helped him in the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum, so he was biased toward him. The old Dragon King was a terrifying old monster who had lived since a few hundred years after the Great Destruction. He couldn't be the same as Sure Kaitian. Under Li Tianqian's hopeful gaze, the old Dragon King also came to Tianyang. However, the words he said made Li Tianqian feel even more hopeless. The old Dragon King bowed slightly. Greetings, Demon Venerable. Boom. A thunderous sound exploded in everyone's hearts. Those were 2 Supremes. There were only 2 in Heaven Continent who were at the peak of Heaven Ascension Stage LV6. They were even close to Heaven Ascension Stage LV7. To be able to resist the Demon Emperor's attack and protect the northern wilderness region's last Pure Land, apart from Tianyang's formation, these 2 had contributed greatly. In the end, these 2 Supremes bowed and even knelt on one knee in front of a human youth who was only in his 20s? Tianyang, this is, the 9-tailed monster emperor was also stunned. Those were 2 Supremes. Only Ling Yuhan, who was beside Tianyang, remained calm. In her opinion, it wasn't just the old Dragon King and Sure Kaitian. Even if the Demon Emperor knelt in front of Tianyang, she wouldn't be surprised. This was the boundless confidence that Ling Yuhan had gained from Tianyang's valiant battle results. Now that the enemy is before us, you don't have to be like this. Tianyang raised his hands and a breeze blew past. The 2 Supremes at the peak of Heaven Ascension Stage LV6 actually stood up on their own. Seeing this, the 2 Supremes at the peak of Heaven Ascension Stage LV6 were even more shocked. What kind of technique was this? At this moment, the old Dragon King also reacted quickly. Now was not the time to talk about this. He looked at Li Tianqian sternly. Li Tianqian, as the leader of the alliance, you actually rashly attacked an almighty at the peak of the 6th level of the Heaven Ascension realm. How should you punish yourself? The old Dragon King said coldly. Hearing that, Li Tianqian's expression changed drastically. The peak of LV6 of the heaven-reaching state? Li Tianqian released his soul power and carefully sensed Tianyang's aura. There was no trace of blood on his face at all. The peak of LV6 of the heaven-reaching state. He was not inferior to the old Dragon King or Sure Kaitian. Even in the Heaven Continent before the Great Calamity, he was still a supreme expert. Until now, he was the supreme ruler of the continent. This. Li Tianqian didn't know what to say. Seeing this, the old Dragon King's eyes flashed with disappointment. Back then, they had elected Li Tianqian as the leader of the alliance because Li Tianqian was, after all, a ruler of a martial sacred land with decent strength. He should be able to manage an alliance well. In the end, resisting the enemy was done by him and Sure Kaitian, as well as countless warriors of the Heaven Continent who were bathed in blood. The internal management was a mess. If not for the 2 of them, the alliance would have been broken up by Li Tianqian and his cronies. As for his own strength, logically speaking, in the face of such a crisis, even the weakest person would have improved. Sure Kaitian was even closer to the 7th level of the Heaven Ascension realm. As for the old Dragon King, if not for his old injuries, he would have broken through to the 7th level of the Heaven Ascension realm. But Li Tianqian did not move at all. He was like a pool of stagnant water. And now, he had even attacked Heavenly Sun without distinguishing right from wrong. This further proved that this person was trash. I order that Li Tianqian be stripped of his position as the leader of the alliance. The alliance will be temporarily managed by me, Sure Kaitian, and the others. What do you think? The old Dragon King said indifferently. Hearing that, Li Tianqian's face turned even paler. The others woke up from their shock and spoke one after another. Seconded. 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 Among the higher-ups of the alliance, who dared to stand on Li Tianqian's side. How dare he attack a peak heaven ascension realm LV6 more than once? He was courting death. Some of them looked at Li Tianqian, who was still in Tianyang's hands, with sorrow. Tianyang was too strong. He suppressed Li Tianqian with a flip of his hand and changed Li Tianqian's fate without saying a word. Tianyang, what do you think? The old Dragon King turned his head and asked with a fawning smile. Tianyang nodded slightly. To him, Li Tianqian couldn't be bothered to care about him. He was just a peak heaven ascension realm LV6. He could kill Sanguinati easily even if he handed him the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. Come to think of it, he wondered how Sanguinati was doing after half a year. I'm here to tell you a piece of news. Tianyang removed his control over Li Tianqian and turned his head to speak to the crowd. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Tianyang came back personally to tell them the news? I fought with the Demon Emperor earlier. Originally, the Demon Emperor had led his troops to conquer the northern wilderness region. However, he was stopped by Yi Zhanling, who delayed me until I reached the heavenly tribulation and killed the Demon Emperor's clone. I also killed 100 demon kings before I came back. Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Fought with the Demon Emperor and killed 100 demon kings? When Tianyang said this earlier, everyone thought that he was talking nonsense and was extremely arrogant. Now, no one dared to refute Tianyang's words. After all, this kind of thing could be easily found out after some investigation. The death of 100 demon kings was an earth-shattering event in the demon race. What's the news? The old Dragon King did not suspect anything. He was only shocked, but his attention was on Tianyang's next sentence. 3 days later, the demon race and heaven continent will fight, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the old Dragon King, Shi Kaitian, and the rest of the elite's faces changed drastically. 3 days later? How can it be so fast? The northern wilderness region can't support the battle now, everyone said. Hearing this, Tianyang frowned. 3 days later. I've already given them time to prepare. Now, the demon race's blood sea has been formed and can produce endless demon race members. I've just killed 100 demon kings, which greatly weakened the demon race's strength. It can be said that the longer we delay, the stronger the demon race will be. The longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it is for us, Tianyang said. Hearing this, although everyone found it hard to accept, they still nodded. Indeed, it was as Tianyang said. However, 3 days' time, it might not be too sudden. 3 days is already the best time, but the current situation in Heaven Continent. The old Dragon King furrowed his brows and said. However, Tianyang suddenly smiled. The demon race's combat power is less than 10%, and there aren't many low-level demon soldiers and demon generals. Heaven Continent might be able to fight. Old Dragon King, if you've broken through to Heaven Ascension Stage 7, we might still have a chance of winning this battle, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the old Dragon King raised his head. A look of shock flashed across his eyes. Chapter 873. You can help me break through to Heaven Ascension Stage 7? The old Dragon King's shocked voice sounded like a bomb exploding in the entire palace. Helping others to break through was not something that didn't exist. However, to be able to help others break through at the level of the heavenly completion realm, that was really too terrifying. Of course, Tianyang said with a faint smile, causing the entire palace to shake again. The reason why you haven't broken through is that your old injuries are still there. Once you break through, it may affect your injuries and cause your 1,000 years of cultivation to go to waste. However, in addition to being a cultivator at the peak of Heaven Ascension Stage 6, I'm also a 6th-grade alchemist, a supreme alchemist. Concocting pills to heal your injuries is as simple as that, Tianyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank. They were extremely shocked. A sixth-grade alchemist, a supreme alchemist? In the past, only the third elder of the ancient shrine had reached this level. However, after the third elder of the ancient shrine was killed by the demon emperor, the only supreme alchemist on the continent disappeared. Now, Tianyang actually said that he was also a supreme alchemist? That's right. Tianyang once unleashed a terrifying soul power that suppressed the third elder of the ancient shrine and killed Granny Lingshan in the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. If there can only be one supreme alchemist in this world, then there is no doubt that it can only be Tianyang. At this moment, someone in the crowd exclaimed in shock. Immediately, everyone shuddered. They all knew the person who spoke. He was one of the overlords of the sea in the past, the master of Penglai Island. It was impossible for such an existence to lie. In fact, at Tianyang's level, lying was already beneath them. However, he was refining pills to heal injuries and help people break through. The crowd's enthusiasm calmed down a little. However, it immediately became heated again. Even if it did not directly increase one's cultivation, it was still extremely important. With the calamity looming, who did not have a cultivator who could not break through due to serious injuries? If they could all recover from their injuries and break through, the combat power of Heaven Ascension stage would definitely rise to a higher level. Really? Hearing this, the old Dragon King's breathing became heavy. This injury of his had existed since 3,000 years ago. Although it had been suppressed for 3,000 years, its power was no longer as strong as before, and it had forced him into a deep slumber. However, it would be difficult for it to recover without the help of a supreme alchemist. Back then, the old Dragon King had sought out the third elder of the ancient Divine Hall, but the third elder of the ancient Divine Hall was unable to help. After all, this was an injury that almost killed the old Dragon King. Although the ancient shrine's third elder's soul power wasn't weak, it was still far from alchemy supremacy. If he hadn't been the strongest alchemist in the entire Tianshao Great World, the title of alchemy supremacy would never have been given to him. Now Tianyang, who was far more powerful than the third elder of the ancient divine temple and even Granny Spiritual Mountain, had appeared. The old Dragon King's hope was once again ignited. Of course. Tomorrow I will be refining pills in the center of the northern wilderness region. By then, everyone can come and watch. I won't only be refining pills for you. I will also be refining pills for others. By then, as long as you are strong enough but can't break through due to your injuries, you can come and exchange for pills. Tianyang said plainly. Right now, he couldn't break through to Ascension Realm Level 7 in a short time. Although he had a strong foundation, he had only been in the Ascension Realm for half a year. 99% of his time had been spent on the Ascension Tribulation. He had only just stabilized his cultivation base. How could he have the energy to break through? On the other hand, the old Dragon King and the others, they should have broken through, but they couldn't due to their injuries. If they could recover, the combat power of the Sky Continent would definitely increase. For the final battle in 3 days, they would have a stronger foundation to rely on. Alright. Hearing this, the old Dragon King waved his fist in the air, his face filled with excitement. Tianyang was already a mythical hero in the hearts of the people of the Sky Continent. For such a person to successfully pass the Ascension Tribulation and enter the Ascension Realm was already something that could shake the hearts of the people of the Sky Continent. In addition, Tianyang had gone out to battle, killed 100 kings, and was going to refine pills in public the next day. The old Dragon King could imagine how shocked the entire Sky Continent would be. It might even cause an uproar. Then, you guys make the arrangements. I'll take my leave first. Tianyang waved his hand and left with Lingyuan. Although he was a sword emperor, he wasn't interested in managing affairs. With the old Dragon King and Shirkaitian around, they probably didn't need him. As for the old Dragon King, after Tianyang left, His expression changed slightly. He turned to look at Li Tianqian and Gui, who had fallen to the ground and were in a daze. Now, with the enemy before us, I don't want to kill you. However, you have offended the Ascension realm. I think you should know what to do, the old Dragon King said plainly. Hearing this, Li Tianqian trembled. He met the old Dragon King's gloomy eyes. Instantly, he understood. If he handled this matter well, the old Dragon King might not hold it against him. If he could survive this calamity, then he would still be the leader of the sacred lands. But if he didn't do it well, after the calamity, it would be his death. Yes. I'll immediately mobilize all my forces to collect the herbs and send them to the Demon Master's residence. Li Tianqian said hurriedly. Gui, who was beside him, also said hurriedly. Me too. Also, I will donate all the treasures of the Ghost Clan to the Alliance to strengthen the Alliance. For the two of them to be able to cultivate to such a level, their IQ and EQ were definitely not weak. Hearing this, the old Dragon King nodded. Then he said, the Alliance cannot be without a leader. Sure, Kaitian and I have no intention of being the Alliance leader. Then, Nine-Tailed Monster Emperor, you once led the Monster Clan to rise. How about you be the Alliance leader? Hearing this, the Nine-Tailed Monster Emperor, who was watching from the side, was stunned. Her face was filled with disbelief. Not long ago, she was ostracized because she was from the Monster Clan. Now, she was going to be Li Tianqian's Alliance leader? Li Tianqian, on the other hand, still had his head lowered. He was not unwilling at all. He even felt lucky that the Nine-Tailed Monster Emperor was not ruthless. Perhaps she would spare his life. After dealing with all this, the old Dragon King turned his head and looked into the distance. There, Tianyang and Ling Yuhan's figures had just disappeared. Demon Master? Now, perhaps I should call him the Sword Emperor. The next day, in the center of the northern wilderness region, countless people who had heard the news gathered around the place. They surrounded the former capital of Skymoon Country so tightly that not even a drop of water could get through. Everyone was here. The old Dragon King, Sure Kaitian, and a group of Heavenly Ascension Realm elites who could not break through or use their strength due to their serious injuries also came here. Today, the Sword King, Demon Master, Sword Emperor, and Pill Emperor Tianyang were here opening the cauldron to refine pills. Chapter 874. After a while, a large crowd had gathered in the city at the center of the northern wilderness region. Tianyang. This name was like a legend in the current heaven continent. In the earthly emperor's small world, he had almost killed the demon emperor by himself and forced the demon emperor to lay low for several years. In the dragon emperor's tomb, he had killed the demon emperor's clone by himself and forced the demon emperor to start the war in advance. After that, he had summoned the terrifying apocalyptic heavenly tribulation that covered the entire Tianshao great world and used the power of the heavenly tribulation to stop the Blood Sea from expanding further. Even the protective array of the northern wilderness region was set up by Tianyang in the past. It could be said that half of the credit for the survival of Heaven Continent was Tianyang. Therefore, when Tianyang disappeared after the heavenly tribulation, everyone panicked. Now, when Tianyang was about to open the cauldron to refine pills in front of everyone, tens of thousands of cultivators had gathered, although there was still a long time before the appointed time by Tianyang. However, more and more cultivators had arrived in the city. The city that could easily accommodate millions of people in the past was packed to the brim. I didn't expect Tianyang to be so popular. Really, the younger generation will surpass us in time. The old Dragon King stood in the sky and sighed as he looked at the tens of thousands of people who had gathered below. Even if he were to refine pills, there probably wouldn't be so many people coming to watch. Although there were people who wanted to see the Alchemy Supreme refine pills. However, most of it was because of the two words, Heavenly Sun. Even the old Dragon King, Sure Kaitian, Li Tianqian, and the nine-tailed demon emperor were not as prestigious as Tianyang, who had disappeared for half a year. However, that kid should be here soon. After the old dragon king sighed, he turned his head and looked into the distance. A stream of light seemed to pierce through the void. Every time it blinked, it would be magnified several times. After a while, a figure appeared in the sky. The center of the northern wilderness region. Boom! As soon as the figure appeared, the crowd below burst into an uproar. Tianyang is here. Tianyang stood in the void and looked down at the hundreds of thousands of people below. Now, the number of people was still increasing rapidly. Because many people suspected that the news was fake, the number of people who came was less than 1,000th of the northern wilderness region's current population. But now, the main character had appeared. The number of people gathered in the capital of Skymoon Country instantly increased. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million currently. The northern wilderness region only had about 30 million people living at most. But now, or in just a few minutes after Tianyang appeared, 1/10 of the 30 million people had gathered here. Tens of thousands of people turned out just for one person. Tianyang felt his blood boiling in his chest as he sensed the gazes of respect from below. Even if he was the Sword Emperor, he was the Sword Emperor of Heaven Continent. "I'm coming," Tianyang spoke. His voice rumbled and spread throughout the world. The crowd below was in an uproar again. Then, Tianyang slowly descended. He came to the prepared high platform. Tianyang did not say much. But just looking at Tianyang made those who were close to him feel suffocated. Tianyang's overall appearance was still as ordinary as before. At most, he was a little handsome. But after going through the heavenly tribulation that covered the entire Tianshao great world, all the flaws in his appearance had disappeared. He was as perfect as a god. Some of the female cultivators who were close to him felt their hearts beat faster when they saw his face. At this moment, Tianyang had already sat down with his legs crossed. The most important thing now was to refine pills. The reason why he chose to refine pills in public was not only to inspire the people, but also because he had other plans. There were 3 types of pills that he wanted to refine. The peak grade 6 pill for the old Dragon King was even more powerful than the life and death transformation pill. It was the Great Rising Dragon pill. This was the most suitable pill for the old Dragon King that Tianyang found after reading the Myriad Pill Tome for a long time. The Great Rising Dragon pill was a peak grade 6 pill. If it was refined well, it could even reach grade 7. It could refine dragon power and mold the original dragon body. Once a dragon rose, it would soar into the 9 heavens. Although this pill was powerful, it was only effective for the dragon clan. There were too many limitations. Therefore, it could be refined with herbs from the Heaven Continent. If he did not find the Great Rising Dragon pill, Tianyang might have used the Life and Death Transformation pill. But if that was the case, the old Dragon King might be able to break through, but he would definitely not be as strong as a Demon King of the same level. But now, with the Great Rising Dragon pill, the old Dragon King could suppress a Demon King of the same level. The second type was the Life and Death Transformation pill. With experience, Tianyang did not have any psychological burden. The third type was to be refined for most of the heavily injured cultivators and to be stored as medicine. Tianyang recited the pill formulas of the 3 types of pills in his heart. He also calmed down. He waved his hand. The true flames of destruction burned. At that moment, a mysterious and white treasure book appeared under Tianyang. Not only did the Myriad Pill Treasure Book record countless pill formulas, it could also be used as a treasure. Using the Myriad Pill Treasure Book as a treasure book was even stronger than using the Myriad Pill Treasure Book alone. Finally, it was the ancient heavenly cauldron, the Xianming Fire Cauldron. A grade 6 spirit fire, the Myriad Pill Treasure Book, and the ancient heavenly cauldron were all present. "Fire, come!" Tianyang shouted. The true flames of destruction were instantly drawn by Tianyang into the Xianming fire cauldron. Seeing that, everyone's hearts trembled. The flame was clearly 5 kilometers away from them. However, they still felt their hearts palpitate as if they were about to be burned. Grade 6 Spirit Fire. This is a Grade 6 Spirit Fire. Tianyang actually has such a flame. At that moment, a cry of surprise sounded. Everyone turned their heads and was shocked. The person who spoke was the continent's famous alchemist, Elder Hiroshi. Elder Hiroshi was a peak Grade 5 alchemist. Due to the limitations of his soul power, he could not reach Grade 6 in his life. However, because he could not reach Grade 6, Elder Hiroshi spent his life studying pills. Even the ancient shrine's third elder, who was previously known as the Supreme Alchemist, did not dare to say that his alchemy knowledge was better than Elder Hiroshi's. Now that Elder Hiroshi spoke, it naturally shocked everyone. Grade 6 Spirit Fire? Tianyang actually has a Grade 6 Spirit Fire? Everyone was shocked. At that moment, Tianyang had already summoned countless medicinal herbs. Refine. Tianyang's lips opened slightly, and a violent shout came out. The next moment, the endless medicinal herbs for refining the great rising dragon pill turned into a torrent of medicinal herbs and rushed into the Xianming fire cauldron. Nonsense! Seeing that, Elder Hiroshi's pupils shrank and he shouted angrily. How can you refine pills like this? With so many medicinal herbs thrown in together, this cauldron will be ruined. Unless it's the Tianji Sword Emperor's 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. However, that divine alchemy technique has long been lost. This guy dares to, before Elder Hiroshi could finish his words. His pupils dilated like a duck whose neck was being squeezed. He saw that above Tianyang's Xianming fire cauldron. Chapter 875. 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique. As the most powerful alchemy technique created by Tianyang in his previous life, how could Tianyang not use it? With Elder Mo's knowledge, he could tell that this was the legendary 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique. He knows the 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique? Elder Mo was dumbfounded. The 9 fire dragons of the 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique were like rotating dragons. No matter how many herbs were thrown in, they could be easily refined. Now, Tianyang was commanding the spiritual fire dragons as though they were his arms. The flow of medicinal herbs did not clash at all as the 9 fire dragons rotated. It was smooth and harmonious. This was no longer just the 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique. It was the 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique's most perfect state. Elder Mo, look! Seeing this, Jun Tianyi tried to stifle his laughter. He had seen Tianyang's 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique. Back then, he was just as shocked as Elder Mo was now. However, back then, he did not know much about alchemy, so he did not make any comment. He did not get slapped in the face like Elder Mo. Look? What's there to look at? I'll sit and watch. Hearing this, Elder Mo blew his beard. Why? Have you never seen an old man make a mistake in judgment? However, even though he recognized Tianyang's 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Technique, Elder Mo continued to watch Tianyang without blinking. The 9 Dragon Cycle Grand Art was only a kind of alchemy art. Even the Sky Pole Sword Emperor, the #1 alchemy martial expert 10,000 years ago, had times when he failed. Although Elder Mo did not want Tianyang to fail, he had been watching this alchemy. To the current Sky Continent, failing in alchemy was nothing. It was fine as long as he succeeded. At this time, Tianyang's refinement of the herbs had reached the final stage. 9 Dragons Wheel Reversal Transform. Tianyang roared and the 9 fire dragons immediately fused into one. Within a ball of black flames, the refined essence of the hundreds of herbs was forcefully mixed together. However, there was a clear distinction between them. The Great Rising Dragon Pill required more than 900 types of herbs and was extremely complicated to refine. If not for Tianyang having the myriad pill tome, the Xianming fire cauldron, the level 6 spiritual fire, and the 9 dragons cycle technique, he wouldn't have dared to refine it at this time. After all, the final battle was in 2 days. Without these advantages, Tianyang would need at least 3 days to refine the Great Rising Dragon Pill. However, now, condense. Heavenly Sun growled, and the 900 herb essences within the true flames of destruction began to condense. Boom, boom, boom. Within the pill cauldron, there were continuous explosions. The resistance of the 900 medicinal herbs was not something to be trifled with. If it wasn't for the fact that the profound underworld flame cauldron was of high quality, if it was another cauldron, it would have exploded long ago. Shit! Old Mo's expression changed. Everyone knew that the solidification step was the most difficult step in pill refinement. Now, with so many medicinal materials, even 2 of the 3rd elders of the ancient god temple might not be able to resist their power. Is Tianyang going to fail? Jun Tiany's expression changed when he saw Elder Mo's reaction. That was more than 900 types of medicinal herbs. If they were destroyed, Tianyang would definitely become the target of everyone's condemnation. It would be great if 900 herbs could be used to refine a level 7 heavenly completion realm martial artist. However, they were still useful individually. If he failed, Tianyang would have to bear the crime of wasting so many life-saving herbs. It's hard to say, Elder Mo shook his head, but he was not optimistic either. Seeing this, Jun Tiany and the other people around Elder Mo felt their hearts sink. Tianyang smirked as he sensed the resisting essence of the herbs in the nether fire cauldron. You want to escape from my control at this level? In the next moment, 4 stars flew out from between Tianyang's eyebrows. At this moment, an extremely terrifying soul force exploded out. Wu Zun Realm Soul Power. Boom. The whole world shook, and the strong resistance in the nether fire cauldron stopped abruptly. All the herbs were sealed by Tianyang's extremely powerful soul power. Even the slightest bit of resistance would be forcefully suppressed by Tianyang's spiritual strength. Tianyang didn't plan on using any painstaking effort, nor did he plan on using any technique. He only needed to use his soul strength to move as fast as he could. He had successfully condensed the elixir, nether fire cauldron, myriad pill tome, true flames of destruction, and 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. These were Tianyang's trump cards. However, this was Tianyang's greatest trump card. Wu Zun Realm Soul Power. This soul power is so powerful. Sensing the soul power that covered the sky, Elder Hiroshi's expression changed drastically. Even though he had tempered his soul power for more than 2,000 years, he still trembled when he felt the Wu Zun Realm Soul Power. It was as if he was not facing a young paragon who was not even 30 years old, but a supreme existence that looked down on the common people. It made his heart tremble. However, even though his soul was being suppressed, Elder Hiroshi was relieved. With such a powerful soul power, it was more than enough to refine a grade 7 elixir. Not to mention this peak grade 6 almighty rising dragon elixir. Boom. At this moment, a dark shadow suddenly charged out from the crowd. Ha ha ha. Tianyang, I finally found a chance. You want to let the old Dragon King break through? No way. At this moment, a sharp, wild laughter was heard. That dark shadow charged directly at Tianyang. A demonic aura was suddenly released. Looking at this aura, it was actually a demon king. Demon clan. Everyone's expression changed drastically. There was actually a demon clan that sneaked into this place? Moreover, it was charging at Tianyang. Damn it! The old Dragon King, who had been on alert in the sky, rushed out. He did not expect that the demon clan had already infiltrated them. However, what made the old Dragon King despair was that the devil race had clearly come prepared and had used a powerful treasure. The treasure immediately boosted the demon emperor's speed to the maximum. Even the old Dragon King could not catch up. If I had known, I would have let everyone watch from 500 miles away. The old Dragon King's face was filled with regret. His figure was getting further and further away from the Demon King. And that Demon King was getting closer and closer to Tianyang. The Demon King's face revealed a trace of malevolence. I don't need to deal with you directly. I can't kill you anyway. However, I can still destroy your cauldron of elixir. When the time comes, the elixir will backfire and you will definitely have to go into seclusion to heal. At that time, Sky Continent will still be ours. The Demon King laughed shrilly. That pair of hands covered in demon chi was less than an inch away from the dark nether fire cauldron. At this moment, Tianyang opened his eyes and glanced indifferently at the Demon King. So it's the guy who escaped before. I killed 100 kings and you still dare to come and die. Tianyang chuckled. Do you know that my great rising dragon elixir is actually still missing a main ingredient? Hearing this, not only was the Demon King stunned, even the old Dragon King was stunned. Missing an ingredient? Then what was he refining before? Pretending to be mysterious. Deliberately mystifying. The Demon King quickly reacted and snorted coldly. It doesn't matter if you're missing or not. As long as I destroy it, everything will be missing. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly laughed. Seize the fortune of heaven and earth. Refine the firmament divine elixir. Tianyang roared and pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground. In the next moment, in the sky, a terrifying bolt of lightning instantly struck down. Tianyang snorted coldly. With a twist of his hands, that bolt of lightning struck the Demon King. What? Seeing this, the Demon King's expression changed drastically. At this moment, Tianyang spoke again. That medicinal ingredient is the Demon King's blood. Boom! That Demon King suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The dark nether fire cauldron erupted with waves of devouring power and devoured it. At the same time, Tianyang suddenly stood up. Black flames burned. That bolt of lightning that was forcefully distorted by Tianyang and shot towards the Demon King turned back. However, it was blasted apart by Tianyang's punch. At this moment, Xingguang flashed one after another, and a faint dragon's roar sounded. The great rising dragon elixir was completed. Rumble at this moment in the sky. Chapter 876. The Pill Tribulation had arrived. In an instant, the northern wilderness region, which had been shrouded in thunderclouds for half a year, welcomed another terrifying thundercloud. However, this thundercloud was different. It was much weaker than the previous apocalyptic tribulation, but it was still not to be underestimated. It's done. Does this mean that the Demon King's blood is really missing? The Dragon King was stunned when he saw the dazzling golden pill engraved with dragon patterns in the cauldron. Then, he looked incredulous. The great rising dragon pill really needed the Demon King's blood? However, Tianyang dared to make it on such a large scale despite the lack of one ingredient. Could it be that he had predicted that the demons would send the Demon King? This plan was simply too valiant. However, below, Tianyang did not think so much. This Demon King had been severely injured by him and had escaped into the Blood Sea, where it had been corroded by the Blood Sea. Although it had a cultivation level of Heaven Ascension Stage 7, it was now less than a tenth of its original level. The Demon Emperor had no interest in such a Demon King, but it would be a pity to throw it away. Sending it to destroy the pill was the best use. It would be good if it succeeded, but he would not feel bad if it failed. He did not care about the Demon King's life at all. This Demon King was indeed the #1 Lord of Evil. However, even the Demon King did not expect this. Not only did the Demon King fail, but he also gave the other party an ingredient. Old Dragon King, don't interfere with this pill tribulation. At this moment Tianyang spoke. Hearing that, the Dragon King could not help but be stunned. In his opinion, Tianyang had just obtained the fortune of heaven and earth and successfully made the divine pill. Then, he forcefully summoned the lightning to destroy the Demon King. He should have used up a lot of energy. Yet, he did not want him to interfere? The Dragon King did not know that Tianyang had a huge grudge against the lightning tribulation, or rather, the heavenly path. Putting aside the wind, fire, and lightning tribulations, he even summoned the primordial young emperor, the thunder-fire divine king's shadow. There was no doubt that he wanted to kill Tianyang. Now, he saw the lightning tribulation. Naturally, Tianyang could not hold back his thoughts. He only wanted to shatter it into pieces. Boom! At this moment, a bolt of lightning struck. Like a world-destroying lightning spear, it pierced through the void and shot fiercely towards the netherworld flame cauldron, wanting to destroy the great rising dragon pill. The great rising dragon pill was originally a divine pill refined by seizing the good fortune of heaven and earth. Previously, Tianyang had even used the power of the pill tribulation to help it form a pill. The heavenly Tao was naturally infuriated. However, before the lightning spear was even 100 meters away from the Xianming flaming cauldron, a streak of sword light suddenly shot out. Boom! The sword light that carried no smoke or fire cut the lightning in half. At this moment, 3 more bolts of lightning descended from the sky. Seeing this, the old Dragon King's expression changed. Tianyang's lightning that he had seen before was the last struggle of the heavenly way. It was not very powerful. He did not know how powerful the lightning tribulation Tianyang had encountered in the tomb of the Dragon King was. Now, each of these 3 thunderbolts had the potential to kill a heavenly arrival state expert. Now that all 3 had arrived, it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Instead, it was increasing exponentially. However, Tianyang still smiled disdainfully in the face of the 3 lightning bolts. Has the heavenly way run out of energy? The pill tribulation that was so hard to get is so weak? It's not a problem to summon an immemorial alchemy emperor. Tianyang's face was full of sarcasm. Looking at the 3 lightning bolts, the great void sword embryo flashed and slashed out again. The 3rd sword of the sky extreme sword art, star burial. The sword light was like a river of stars, burying all the stars in the sky. The dazzling sword light swept across the void and directly collided with the 3 lightning bolts. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and an incomparably tyrannical airwave burst out in all directions. The capital of Skymoon Country also shook violently. Fortunately, those sitting in the front row were all people with extremely strong cultivation. They suppressed the waves caused by the pill tribulation, and thus Skymoon Country did not collapse. However, some people were inevitably affected and took a few steps back. However, everyone looked at Tianyang with gazes that did not contain any negative emotions. Millions of people were looking at him with reverence, controlling the divine fire, refining the divine pill, seizing the fortune of heaven and earth, and borrowing the power of heaven and earth to slay the demon king. Now, he was holding a long sword and facing the sky proudly. Such a demeanor. It was peerless. Weak enough. The 3 lightning bolts could not withstand Tianyang's star burial at all. In just a moment they were turned into ashes. The tribulation cloud in the sky was about to continue to condense lightning bolt. This kind of weak tribulation cloud dares to come out and make a fool of itself? Might as well just destroy it. Tianyang smiled faintly, and the great void sword embryo in his hand bloomed with a peerless light. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. Could it be Boom? Just as everyone thought, Tianyang directly swung his sword and took the initiative to attack. With a slash of his sword, he trampled on all life and dominated the sky. The tribulation cloud seemed to have been provoked, and instantly released streaks of lightning. The monstrous lightning turned into a sea of lightning and fiercely suppressed Tianyang. The tribulation cloud was the will of heaven. Heaven's might could not be violated. Rumble, the sea of lightning descended. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly laughed. It's just a sea of lightning. What do I, Tianyang, have to fear? If that's the case, then you don't have to come anymore. Tianyang laughed loudly, and in the next moment, his figure disappeared from the spot. Everyone hurriedly looked up and saw that Tianyang's figure had almost instantly appeared 1,000 miles above the sky. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone with a shocking shenguang. Is Tianyang going to? The old Dragon King was stunned. Taking the initiative to attack against the Pill Tribulation was already an unprecedented feat now. Was Tianyang going to flower of the other shore, bloom? This sword condensed the sword way of the sage state, the way of life and death. The two saint paths had merged into one in this sword. Boom! It was like a blood-colored flower blooming on the shore of the river Styx. It was a sea of lightning. It was shattered by Tianyang's sword. One sword, breaking the sea of lightning. It shocked everyone in the world. Tianyang's expression was indifferent. Looking at the sea of lightning that he had shattered with one strike, a trace of interest appeared on his face. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the sea of lightning. Instantly, a trace of the essence of the Pill Tribulation that could only be released at the end of the tribulation appeared in his hand. Interesting. Tianyang smiled slightly and used the Void Step secret technique to return to the high platform. A streak of essence was injected into the Daluo Rising Dragon Pill. The Daluo Rising Dragon Pill was formed. At this moment, another streak of true flames of destruction burned in Tianyang's hand, and he threw it into the Xianming fire cauldron that had yet to cool down. A total of 5 sets of life and death pills medicinal herbs turned into a flood of medicinal herbs and were refined by the 9 dragons cycle technique. Tianyang had refined many life and death pills before. Now that he was refining them again, it was naturally a walk in the park. Not long after, 5 wheel of life and death revolving pills were refined. The success rate was 100%. Seeing this, the crowd was almost numb. The Alchemy Supreme was indeed the Alchemy Supreme. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly smiled and threw out the Pill Tribulation in his hand. Then, he formed a seal with both hands. Rain clouds gathered in the sky again, but this time, the rain clouds did not have any lethality. Whoosh, raindrops fell one after another. Seeing this, the crowd was puzzled. Why was the Demon Lord summoning rain for no reason? However, when the raindrops fell on a primordial transformation realm cultivator with crippled legs, a jade-green light covered that cultivator. A few seconds later, the light dissipated. The primordial transformation realm cultivator, who could only lie in bed his entire life, suddenly jumped up. Seeing this, the crowd was dumbfounded. At this moment, raindrops fell one after another. The injured healed, and the living became stronger. Even the injured in the Tao Fire realm recovered slightly under the drips of the pill rain. In the sky, the old Dragon King's face was filled with excitement as he looked at the rain clouds that were getting bigger and bigger until they covered the entire northern wilderness region. His voice trembled as he said, "This is pill rain from the sky, nourishing the northern wilderness." Chapter 877. In the blood sea of the demon race. Right now, the demonic emperor had set up a base camp 30,000 miles away from the northern wilderness region. Other than the munitions factory that couldn't be moved, all the demons in Heaven Continent had come here. The demon emperor sat on the main seat with a gloomy face. "You're saying that the demon king that I sent out not only died in the hands of Tianyang, but was also refined into a pill? All the arrangements that I've racked my brains for have turned into waste paper? Because of Tianyang's pill refinement, the northern wilderness region rained pills from the sky, blessed the world, and almost became a treasure land where spiritual qi gathers. You told me the day before the final battle. All the cultivators in the northern wilderness region are in peak condition. They've set up a great array and are waiting for us to go there. The old Dragon King has broken through to Heaven Ascension Stage 7, and Shi Kaitian's strength has increased again. Other than Li Tianqin and Guiyin, all the higher-ups of the Heaven Continent Alliance have increased their strength? The Demon Emperor's expression was extremely ugly as he roared at the Demon General who was passing down the order. If it was only the first piece of news, the Demon Emperor might not be so angry. Letting the heavily injured demon king stop Tianyang from refining pills was just a matter of luck. It didn't matter if he died. However, the following news infuriated even the scheming Nephilim king. 2 days. Tianyang had returned from the lightning tribulation in just 2 days. The northern wilderness region's strength was more than twice as strong as before. On the other hand, the demons. Tianyang had killed hundreds of demon kings, which caused great damage to their vitality. Until now, they hadn't recovered from it. Originally, the demon race had a crushing advantage over Sky Cloud's continent. However, after Tianyang appeared, the demon's strength decreased greatly, while Heaven Continent's strength increased greatly. And it was getting closer and closer. No. If this continues, I'm afraid that after 3 days, more powerhouses will appear in Heaven Continent. The demon emperor suddenly stood up, his face extremely gloomy. The last time he went on an expedition, he had taken away more than 100 devil kings, but less than a third of them returned alive. Of those who returned, only 2 or 3 were able to maintain their peak strength. All of them were like defeated soldiers, terrifyingly weak. Currently, there were at most 30 devil kings in the demon clan. Half of them had yet to fully recover. In terms of high-end battle prowess, they were still inferior to Heaven Continent. However, there wasn't much fear on the demon emperor's face. The sea of blood beneath their feet was the fiend race's greatest reliance. As long as the blood sea was not destroyed, the devil race was not destroyed, and the devil race would not be defeated. Your Majesty, you are, at this time, a demon king who had preserved his battle prowess at the 7th tier of the Heaven Ascension realm spoke, looking at the demon emperor. The demon emperor sneered, naturally, it's war. The sudden appearance of tens of millions of demon soldiers in the blood sea naturally couldn't be hidden from Sky Cloud's continent. However, the people of Sky Cloud's continent didn't expect the great demon emperor would personally tear up the agreement and directly declare war. Report: the 100,000 vanguard troops of the devil race have already reached the edge of the blood sea. They are only 1,000 miles away from the formation. Report: the 30,000 elite demon-slaying swords of the demon race and the 80,000 demon-killing army of the human race are ready. They are ready to fight at any time. In the Snowgale Imperial Palace, one voice after another sounded. The old Dragon King, who had just broken through, looked extremely gloomy. Damn it! The old Dragon King hammered the table, the veins on his face bulging. He couldn't help but release the aura of a 7th-tier Heaven Ascension realm. The devil race, as expected of the devil race, tearing up the agreement is like playing a game. It clearly only took 1 day for Tianyang to complete the formation and create an absolute advantage. In the end, the demon emperor actually declared war. The old Dragon King roared, his dragon's aura erupting. If not for the fact that the people around were all Heaven Ascension realm elites, the dragon's aura would have exploded. The surrounding people would have collapsed. A 7th-tier Heaven Ascension realm elite was terrifying. Should we inform Lord Demon Venerable? An expert asked. If he makes a move. No, unless it's a critical moment, don't go. The old Dragon King shook his head. Now, Tianyang is at the critical moment of setting up the formation. If we interrupt them halfway, they will definitely fail. The ones here now are only the vanguard troop. The devil race may not have the intention to go all out. Delay for as long as possible, the old Dragon King said. Then, he stood up abruptly. Sure Kaitian, who was beside him, was shocked. He looked up and said, The army cannot be without a commander. I am already over 9,000 years old. Now that I have broken through, I am still as sharp as before. Therefore, let me lead the army and meet the 100,000 vanguard troops of the devil race. The old Dragon King said. Hearing this, Sure Kaitian could only nod. The old Dragon King revealed a satisfied smile when he got the agreement. Circulating his vital essence, his command spread across the northern wilderness. demon-killing army of the human race, demon-slaying swords of the demon race, return to your positions. Follow me to slay the demons and kill the enemy. The old Dragon King shouted. The next moment, he transformed into a giant dragon and soared into the sky. Around the northern wilderness region, countless soldiers had finished gathering and followed the old Dragon King toward the Blood Sea. 10 minutes later, at the edge of the formation in the northern wilderness region, at the border of the Blood Sea, the 100,000 vanguard troops of the Devil race had been waiting for a long time. Blood Prison Demon King, you are a 7th-tier Heaven Ascension Realm elite. You are one of the strongest Demon Kings. This is just a test. Why do you need to be involved? A doubtful voice came from the vanguard troops. Hearing this, the person who was asked smiled evilly. Blood Prison Demon King, Inshu. He was one of the strongest demon kings in existence. He was not much weaker than the devouring Demon King. Blood Prison Demon King was from the Blood Demon clan. His skin was as red as blood. On his forehead, there were 2 black and purple horns that curved upward. He was 3 meters tall. If he revealed his true form, even the palaces of the mortal kingdoms would not be able to compare to him. He wore a long black robe that flapped in the wind of the Blood Sea. On his back, there were 2 black bat wings that were 10 meters long. They shone with a ferocious light. A bloodthirsty look flashed across Blood Prison Demon King's eyes. Of course, that is, to break the formation as fast as possible and seize the cities of the northern wilderness region. Then, with us as the vanguard, we will enter the northern wilderness region and slaughter everyone in Heaven Continent. We will take the Tianshao Great World for ourselves. Blood Prison Demon King laughed. Hearing this, the commander of the 100,000 vanguard troops nodded respectfully. I see. His Majesty, the Demon Emperor, is indeed far-sighted. Breaking the formation and seizing the cities? You wish. At this moment, a thunderous dragon roar resounded through the clouds. The aura of a 7th-tier Heaven Ascension Realm elite was released. If you want to enter the northern wilderness region, you have to get past me first. In the sky, a huge dragon roared at the sky. Below. Chapter 878. 200,000 soldiers from Heaven Continent. They were gathered here. That's the demon race? Zhou Tong from the Stars Swordplay sect looked at the 100,000 demon race vanguard in front of him. Although they were called the demon race, they were all part of the same race. Just like Blood Prison Demon King, they were from the Blood Demon race. All of them looked ferocious and their bodies were blood red. The air around them was dyed red by the aura they exuded. Although the horns on their heads were not as ferocious as Blood Prison Demon King's, they still carried a strange and powerful force. What Zhou Tong was most worried about was not their terrifying appearance, but every one of them was at the peak of the primordial transformation realm. The blood demons with the thickest horns might have already reached the level 3 Dao Fire Realm, or even the Sea of Spirit Realm. Damn it! I didn't expect the demon race to send out so many elites in their vanguard. Zhou Tong's face was gloomy to the extreme. If this 100,000 vanguard army was a motley crew, Zhou Tong would not be afraid. With the advantage of more than 100,000 people, the morale boosted by Tianyang's help, and the strength of Heaven Continent, it would not be difficult to win. However, the vanguard of the demon race was obviously made up of elites. On the other hand, although Heaven Continent's army had a large number of people, there were only 50,000 at the peak of the primordial transformation realm and 3 at the Sea of Spirit realm, including him. They could not be compared to the vanguard of the demon race. The old Dragon King also noticed the huge difference between the two sides. His dragon face turned ugly as he looked at Blood Prison Demon King. Let's have a battle between the elites to determine the victor. What do you think? The old Dragon King said. Hearing this, Blood Prison Demon King sneered and looked at him mockingly. My Blood Demon army is made up of elite. Why would I need to fight with you to determine the victor? Blood Demon army, kill! Blood Prison Demon King ordered. Instantly, the 100,000 blood demons at the peak of the primordial transformation realm at the edge of the blood sea roared. Kill. In the next moment, they released their blood demon chi and charged towards Heaven Continent's army. Those of Heaven Continent kill. Seeing this, the old Dragon King naturally could not continue to wait. He roared loudly and gave the order. Hearing this, the Sky Cloud Continent's Alliance army, which had been itching for a fight, immediately charged out. The 200,000 soldiers instantly split into 20 square formations. Their true essence condensed, and small disc arrays appeared in their hands. In the next moment, true essence poured in, and a terrifying pillar of light erupted from the center of the 20 square formations. Kill these demon bastards! Zhou Tong let out a furious roar as he activated the largest core formation disc in his hand, merging the 20 true origin light beams into one and bursting out. Before Tianyang set up the formation, he had refined a one-time use formation disc for the Sky Continent's allied army. It was able to fuse the power of 10,000 people into one. As for the core array disc in Zhou Tong's hand, it was able to fuse 20 pillars of light from 10,000 people into one. He had unleashed such a shocking attack. Boom! The dazzling light beam that had merged with the 200,000 Heaven Continent Alliance army broke through the void and rushed into the Blood Demon army at lightning speed. If the Blood Demon army wanted to enter the northern wilderness region, they would have to break through the formation that Tianyang had set up and strengthened by countless elite. On the other hand, it would be a piece of cake for the Sky Continent's allied army to enter the Blood Sea. However, facing the light beam that had gathered the power of 200,000 people, a look of disdain appeared on the Blood Prison Demon King's face. Just a small trick, that's all. At this moment, a terrifying demonic aura burst out from the Blood Demon army and turned into a blood-red mirror. The old Dragon King's face changed drastically. The Blood Demon mirror? Why did the Blood Demon army take out a supreme-grade spiritual artifact of the Blood Demon tribe? Moreover, it was the perfect counter to their light beam. Damn it! The old Dragon King's face changed drastically. He swung his dragon tail and rushed toward the Blood Demon mirror. If the Blood Demon mirror was allowed to unleash its power, the consequences would be unimaginable. Where do you think you're going with me here? At this moment, a cold laugh could be heard. The Blood Prison Demon King revealed his true form. His body was as large as the old Dragon King's and blocked the old Dragon King's path. At this moment, the dazzling light beam had already shattered the void and slammed into the Blood Demon mirror. No! The old Dragon King's face changed drastically. He roared and pushed the Blood Prison Demon King back and charged toward the Blood Demon mirror. However, it was useless. That beam of light had completely entered the Blood Demon mirror. What happened? The Sky Continent's allied army was still confused. What was going on? At this moment, the Blood Demon mirror suddenly emitted a strange blood-red light. Zhou Tong's face changed drastically. He raised the long sword in his hand and roared, "Back off!" However, it was too late. The Blood Demon mirror swallowed the light beam. In the next moment, it used the power of the Blood Demon mirror to reflect the light beam back at an even faster speed. Boom! The light beam slammed into the array, causing it to tremble. A portion of the light beam tore a crack and rushed into the allied army. In the next moment, aha! The blood-red light beam that was swallowed by the Blood Demon mirror was like a demonic sword that symbolized slaughter. It crazily reaped the lives of the Sky Continent's allied army. Every minute, every second, there were people from Sky Continent who died in the blood-red light beam. In a short moment, more than 30,000 of the 200,000 allied army had died. Damn it! The old Dragon King was furious. He punched the Blood Prison Demon King who was tailing him. Dragon King's Divine Fist. 10,000 dragons slaying gods. As the oldest and strongest person in the East Sea Dragon Palace and the great-grandson of the East Sea Dragon Sage, How could the old Dragon King not know the Dragon King's divine fist? He threw out a punch, and the extremely powerful dragon energy condensed into tens of thousands of dragon energy dragons, which flew towards the Blood Prison Demon King. The Blood Prison Demon King's face changed slightly. His hands instantly turned black, bringing with them streaks of blood-red lightning as they collided with the punch. In an instant, waves of blood surged and the sea of blood roiled. The old Dragon King's body flashed and appeared behind the Blood Prison Demon King. What? The Blood Prison Demon King's face changed drastically. He turned around in disbelief. However, the old Dragon King's face had already darkened. He attacked with his claw. Behind him, a terrifying dragon shadow roared into the sky. One of the great powers brought by the Great Rising Dragon Pill. The Great Rising Dragon Shadow. Myriad dragon shadows annihilate heaven and earth. The old Dragon King roared, and the Daluo Dragon Shadow abruptly split apart. The Dragon King's divine fist was not much weaker than the old Dragon King's. It landed on the Blood Prison Demon King's back. Chapter 879. One punch. The Blood Prison Demon King was sent flying. How is this possible? The Blood Prison Demon King was still in shock as he fell into the Blood Sea. Was this the old Dragon King who had lived for more than 9,000 years? Even if he had just broken through to Heaven Ascension Stage LV7, it was still impossible. The Blood Prison Demon King did not know. The Great Rising Dragon Elixir that Tianyang had refined was so powerful. It had helped the old Dragon King reach Heaven Ascension Stage LV7 perfectly. The real effect was to reconstruct the Dragon King's original dragon body. The old Dragon King's original dragon body was almost destroyed after 9,000 years. This was one of the reasons why the old Dragon King did not do anything when He Ming brought the Black Dragon clan to attack. The old Dragon King was too old. If he had not been in deep sleep for so many years, he would not have lived to this age. The Great Rising Dragon Elixir had reconstructed the old Dragon King's original dragon body. Although it was impossible for the old Dragon King to reach the prime of his life, he was much more powerful than before. Coupled with his 9,000 years of cultivation and his cultivation level of Heaven Ascension Stage LV7, the old Dragon King would not be in any danger even if he were to fight against the Great Elder of the Ancient Shrine. Damn it! The Blood Prison Demon King rushed out of the Blood Sea. His robe had been corroded by the Blood Sea. His blood-red body, which was as hard as steel, was exposed to the air. Although the Blood Sea was created by the Demon Clan, it had absorbed too many living beings in Heaven Ascension Stage. Although the energy in the Blood Sea was huge, it was also filled with resentment. Even a Demon King like the Blood Prison Demon King would be injured if he entered it. However, such a sea of blood was perfect for creating demonic soldiers and generals. The old Dragon King is indeed one of the strongest cultivators in Heaven Ascension Stage. Such power is indeed extraordinary. The Blood Prison Demon King did not fight the old Dragon King immediately after he flew out of the Blood Sea. Instead, he smiled coldly. I admit that if we fight with our full strength, I might not be able to defeat you. But, do I need to defeat you now? Blood Prison Demon King suddenly laughed out loud. Hearing this, the old Dragon King, who had a hint of joy on his face, instantly turned pale. He hurriedly turned his head to take a look, and his face instantly turned extremely ugly. At the edge of the sea of blood, the Blood Demon King's Blood Demon army had managed to create a gap in Tianyang's formation with the help of the light pillar formed by the Blood Demon mirror devouring 200,000 people. Now, 80,000 of the 100,000 demonic tribes' vanguard had entered the northern wilderness region. Due to the Blood Demon mirror, the 200,000 soldiers of the Sky Firmament continent had suffered heavy casualties. Now that they were attacked by the blood demons, casualties were everywhere. Bastard! The old Dragon King's eyes turned red instantly. His body turned into a dragon and charged toward the northern wilderness region. However, in front of him, one attack after another was fired, which forcibly stopped the old Dragon King's figure from moving forward. I can't beat you, but I can hold you back. When my blood demon army opens the gates of the northern wilderness region, I won't need to deal with you anymore. My emperor can kill you with a flip of his hand. Blood Prison Demon King laughed out loud. Hearing this, the old Dragon King was enraged. He roared, "Get lost! Dragon King Divine Fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods." Another punch was thrown. However, this time, the old Dragon King was completely enraged. Feeling the pressure of this terrifying punch, Blood Prison Demon King's face turned serious. However, he still looked fearless. Blood Demon Mirror, reflect all things. Blood Prison Demon King roared. The Blood Demon Mirror that the Blood Demon Army had relied on to break through the formation appeared in Blood Prison Demon King's hands. Next, the demonic chi in Blood Prison Demon King's hands surged and entered the Blood Demon Mirror. Blood Demon Mirror, transform heaven and earth. A demonic blood-red light shone from the Blood Demon Mirror and shot out an eerie blood-red light. The Dragon King Divine Fist that the old Dragon King had thrown out started to dissipate under the blood-red light. Even the dragons were forcibly melted by an eerie force and turned into wisps of dragon chi in the surroundings. What kind of technique is this? The old Dragon King's face changed. Feeling the dragon chi that was about to go out of control, his face turned serious. He had been in Tianshao Great World for countless years, but he had never seen such a technique. How would a native of Tianshao Great World like you know of the demonic realm's techniques? Blood Prison Demon King laughed out loud when he saw the old Dragon King's serious expression. The Blood Demon Mirror in his hands shone again. Haha! Just watch as your army is slaughtered by my Blood Demon army. Blood Prison Demon King laughed out loud. Suddenly, a smile appeared on the old Dragon King's face. Blood Prison Demon King immediately felt that something was amiss. The situation had already reached such a stage. Logically speaking, the old Dragon King would definitely be enraged and attack him. At that time, he would use the Blood Demon Mirror to neutralize the old Dragon King's attack. Once the Blood Demon Army had broken through Tianshao Continent's Alliance Army, he would be able to build a space gate and let the demonic army in. But now, the old Dragon King. What was he laughing about? Dragon Soul Rage. At this moment, a thunderous roar resounded in Blood Prison Demon King's ears. Streaks of Dragon Soul impact struck Blood Prison Demon King's demonic soul before he could react. Aha! Blood Prison Demon King's face contorted in pain as he hugged his head and screamed. At that moment, the old Dragon King, who was smiling in front of Blood Prison Demon King, slowly disappeared. The old Dragon King turned around and punched Blood Prison Demon King, sending him flying. Then, he appeared in the northern wilderness region in a flash. What? Why is the old Dragon King here? One of the Blood Demon Army's commanders, who was fighting with Zhou Tong, exclaimed in disbelief when they saw the old Dragon King's figure flying towards them. Then, Zhou Tong's eyes narrowed. Here's my chance. Star Annihilation Sword. Zhou Tong roared and activated the Stellar Cycle Sword scripture. A sword strike that was extremely terrifying struck out. What? The Blood Demon Army's commander's face changed as he looked at the Star Annihilation Sword in disbelief. He was about to gather his demonic chi to counterattack. But at that moment, the old Dragon King's thunderous roar was heard. Demons die! A claw was launched. Everything was shattered. Terrifying cracks appeared in the boundless space like a mirror. A terrifying dragon claw that could tear the heavens and earth apart descended from the sky. It landed in the middle of the Blood Demon Army. Boom! Grass, trees, mountains, and rocks splashed up like waves of earth, sweeping out in all directions like a landslide. The entire shore of the northern wilderness region was hit by this claw. It sank 300 meters. At the center of this dragon claw, there were traces of blood and demonic chi lingering around. Tens of thousands of blood demon army soldiers were buried here. The Old Dragon King's Might. Chapter 880. A Dragon Claw. It tore apart the entire blood demon army's formation and killed tens of thousands of blood demons. Old Dragon King. Seeing this, Blood Prison Demon King, who was caught off guard by the Old Dragon King's attack, let out an ear-piercing shriek. In the next moment, his body flashed and blood shadows appeared. Waves of demonic energy condensed on his fist as he ruthlessly attacked the Old Dragon King. Die! Blood Demon Sky Devouring Hammer! Blood Prison Demon King roared. Demonic chi gathered on his fist, and he aimed it at the Old Dragon King's huge body. The space exploded and the demonic chi turned into a storm. However, the Old Dragon King's face was still cold as the Daluo Dragon shadow appeared. Dragon King Divine Fist. He turned around and gathered 10,000 dragons to attack Blood Prison Demon King's Blood Demon Sky Devouring Hammer. Boom! A terrifying loud sound was heard, and in the space, there were suddenly spatial ripples that were like tsunamis. It surged and spread in all directions. Seeing this, Zhou Tong's face changed and he quickly shouted, "Everyone, retreat!" The battle between the Old Dragon King and Blood Prison Demon King took place in the sky above the Blood Sea. Even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, it would not affect the battle here. However, the Old Dragon King and Blood Prison Demon King were fighting in the sky above the northern wilderness region. Given the strength of the Heaven Continent's Alliance army, they could not withstand the terrifying shockwaves from the battle. Seeing this, the Blood Demon army that had been severely injured by the Old Dragon King's attack gathered to give chase. However, at this moment, among the Heaven Continent's Alliance army, rays of terrifying sword radiance shot out. They charged into the army of blood demons, causing blood to splatter everywhere. What? There are more people? Blood Prison Demon King's face changed. The sword radiance could not have come from the heavily injured Heaven Continent's Alliance army. However, this was the front line of the front lines. Even the demon army would find it difficult to cross the Blood Sea and reach this place. Even if this was the home ground of the Heaven Continent's Alliance, it was impossible for reinforcements to arrive so quickly. Could it be? Blood Prison Demon King's face changed and he quickly looked at the Heaven Continent's Alliance army that had regrouped. Instantly, his eyes narrowed to the size of a needle. Most of the Sky Cloud's Continent's soldiers who had been severely injured were now unharmed. As for the remaining ones, they were unable to fight due to injuries such as broken arms and legs. However, they still had the ability to survive. How could this be? Blood Prison Demon King's face was filled with disbelief. At this moment, the Old Dragon King's expression changed. Seizing the opportunity, he punched out. Boom! The terrifying power of the 10,000 dragons slaying God fist broke through the Blood Demon Sky Devourer hammer and slammed into Blood Prison Demon King's body. Pooh! Blood Prison Demon King was sent flying backwards, almost falling back into the Blood Sea. His face turned dark and ugly. He had been careless. However, Blood Prison Demon King was still puzzled. The allied army of Sky Cloud's continent was made up of ordinary clans. The vanguard was made up of humans and beasts. The demon race was one thing, but there might be other races that were extremely proficient in battlefield injuries. But the human race, that was a race that everyone knew didn't have any strange abilities. Even if it did, it was impossible for it to appear on these Essence Transformation Realm and Bright Chi Realm cultivators. At this moment, the Old Dragon King seemed to have seen through Blood Prison Demon King's thoughts. That is all because of Tianyang. If not for Tianyang spending so much effort to refine 500,000 pills and distribute them to the allied army of Sky Cloud's continent. Otherwise, the Blood Demon army would have succeeded. 500,000 pills. Blood Prison Demon King's expression changed when he heard that. 500,000 pills, what kind of concept was that? Even if it was the simplest first-grade pill, multiplied by 500,000, it would still be an arduous task enough to make any alchemist tremble in fear. A peak grade 6 alchemist? Absolutely impossible. Even if one was a grade 6 alchemist and had the soul power of Wu Zun, it would be extremely difficult to achieve such a feat. Tianyang's soul power is actually so strong. Blood Prison Demon King's heart sank. Looking at the Blood Demon army that was already in disarray, his face turned extremely ugly. That's right, he had underestimated his opponent. He had thought that with the Blood Demon mirror devouring and counterattacking the allied army of Sky Cloud's continent, he would be able to decide the outcome of the battle. Now, their connection with the Blood Sea had been cut off by the old Dragon King. Moreover, most of the allied army of Sky Cloud's continent had consumed Tianyang's pills and recovered a certain amount of their combat strength. At this moment, Blood Prison Demon King and the Blood Demon army were at a complete disadvantage. Blood Prison Demon King could not be blamed. After all, who would have thought that an army of spiritual Sea Realm cultivators would be led by an army of enlightened Chi Realm and Origin Transformation Realm cultivators? Almost every one of them had a healing pill. However, if you think that you can stop us with this, then you are too naive. At this moment, a maniacal laughter came from Blood Prison Demon King's mouth. Seeing this, the old Dragon King's expression changed slightly. He immediately channeled his dragon energy and charged out. Scram! Blood Prison Demon King roared. The blood demon chi on his body exploded and turned into a powerful repulsive force that sent the old Dragon King flying. At this moment, a shining silver crystal appeared in Blood Prison Demon King's hand. This is the Space Teleportation Crystal? The old Dragon King was knowledgeable and immediately recognized the crystal in Blood Prison Demon King's hand. His expression changed instantly. At this moment, Blood Prison Demon King raised his head and smiled sinisterly. I alone cannot stop you. However, what if there are more people? Ancient Shrine, I have kept you for half a year. It is time for you to come out. Blood Prison Demon King roared and channeled his Blood Demon Chi. The Blood Demon Chi gathered on his fist and crushed the silver crystal. Damn it! The old Dragon King's expression changed drastically. He released his dragon energy and controlled the space teleportation crystal, trying to seal the space. However, he was repelled by a powerful force. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was pushed back a few steps. When the old Dragon King recovered, the space teleportation gate had already formed. A few old men with strange blood-red patterns on their faces walked out of the space teleportation gate. Seeing this, the old Dragon King's face instantly fell below zero. Ancient Shrine, you have defected to the Demon Clan. Old Dragon King let out a loud roar as he glared at those people and furiously roared. At this moment, the leader raised his head and looked at the old Dragon King with a shocked expression. Old Dragon King, you are still alive? At this moment, the last person walked out of the space teleportation gate. The old Dragon King's heart sank to the bottom. The fifth elder of the ancient shrine. The fourth elder of the ancient shrine. The second elder of the ancient shrine. And the strongest person in Heaven Continent before the war, a Heaven Ascension Stage Level 7 Elite. Chapter 881. Apart from the third elder of the ancient shrine, who had been possessed by the Demon Emperor and killed by Tianyang, no one else was present in the ancient shrine. Almost all of the top 5 elders had already arrived. At this moment, the great elder of the ancient god temple spoke. Old Dragon King, I didn't expect you to survive and break through to Heaven Ascension Stage 7. It seems that the battle with the demon race has also brought you a lot of opportunities. The first elder of the ancient shrine chuckled. The Dragon King's face turned cold. He looked at the 4 people in front of him. All of them were covered in black robes, leaving only their heads exposed. His originally white hair, which was full of resilience and vitality, had turned into a strange grayish-white color, and on his face, streaks of terrifying blood-red demonic tattoos wrapped around their bodies. Coupled with their withered and shriveled faces, these elders of the ancient shrine of the divine temple were gloomy and terrifying. I want to ask you the same thing. The Dragon King's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip from it. Your ancient shrine's third elder died at the hands of the Demon Emperor. Back then, when your ancient shrine disappeared for no reason, we thought that you were trapped in some sort of remnant. But now, you're telling me that you've sided with the demon race. The old Dragon King roared in anger. The ancient shrine used to be the top holy land of martial arts of the human race. It was the strongest among the countless forces in the Heaven Continent. Its sudden disappearance had dealt a heavy blow to the morale of the Heaven Continent. Now it had reappeared. As an accomplice of the demon race, the old Dragon King could imagine that if Tianyang hadn't appeared, the news of the ancient shrine joining the demon clan would have spread to the alliance of the Heaven Continent. It would have been a huge blow to the morale of the alliance. Even now, the ancient shrine's status had been completely replaced by Tianyang, who had returned and created countless legends. The Dragon King found it hard to accept. The ancient shrine was the top holy land of martial arts of the human race and the strongest force in the Heaven Continent. The first elder of the ancient shrine was the strongest man in the Tianshao Great World. He had sided with the demon race. The third elder? The first elder of the ancient shrine was stunned when he heard the name. Then, he sneered. Wasn't he possessed by the demon emperor and killed by Tianyang? What does it have to do with us surrendering to the demon race? Hearing this, the old Dragon King felt a chill run down his spine. Although the actions of the third elder of the ancient shrine were despised by the old Dragon King, he had still made great contributions to the ancient shrine. However, the words of the first elder of the ancient god temple made even the old Dragon King, an outsider, feel a chill in his heart. The third elder of the ancient god temple, who had made countless contributions to the ancient god temple, was killed by the demon emperor in the end. However, the great elder of the ancient shrine had said it so casually. He had no intention of taking revenge either. What's more, even if the ancient god temple and the demon tribe really have a grudge against each other, we still have to deal with them. There are no eternal allies in this world, only eternal benefits. Not to mention the death of a small elder, even if everyone in the ancient shrine were to die, it wouldn't matter. A wise man submits to circumstances. Although there is still a small part of this world that is intact, it has already become the demon race's world. If you continue to resist stubbornly in the northern wilderness region, you will only become a part of the Blood Sea. If you follow me and side with the demon emperor, you will be reborn. The first elder of the ancient shrine laughed out loud. Hearing this, the Blood Prison Demon King's expression changed slightly. First elder of the ancient shrine. You. Shut up. Now, I am the demon race's human slayer king, not the first elder of the ancient shrine. Your status isn't even higher than mine. Shut up. The first elder of the ancient shrine said mercilessly. Hearing this, the Blood Prison Demon King's expression darkened. He didn't ask the people from the Temple of Ancient God to come over to recruit the old Dragon King. The old Dragon King had defeated and toyed with him time and time again. He hated the old Dragon King to the core. If he allowed the old Dragon King to join the demon race, then the old Dragon King's position would definitely be higher than his. As his enemy, he had a higher position than him. This feeling of indignation. Scram. However, the old Dragon King only replied with one word to the first elder of the ancient shrine. Human Slayer King? I would like to see how you are going to destroy Heaven Continent. Since we are not on the same page, let's fight. The old Dragon King roared, and his dragon power exploded. Below him, the battle that had been interrupted by the change in the sky erupted again. Stubborn and stubborn. You have lived for 9,000 years, but the longer you live, the more backward you become. Hearing this, the first elder of the ancient shrine shook his head. Fine, I'll show you what true power is. Don't think that just because you can stop the Demon Emperor for a while, you can stop the Demon Emperor for the rest of your life. If not for the Demon Emperor focusing on that matter, your northern wilderness region would have long been overrun. The first elder of the ancient shrine sneered. In the next moment, the terrifying aura of a peak level 7 ascension realm was released. At the same time, there was a mixture of true yuan and demonic qi, revealing a terrifying energy of black and yellow. Peak level 7 ascension realm? Seeing this, the old Dragon King's eyes narrowed. Although the first elder of the ancient shrine was powerful, he was still quite a distance away from the peak level 7 ascension realm. He would need at least a few decades to break through. It had only been half a year since the demon race's calamity. The first elder of the ancient shrine had skipped a few decades? If you join the demon race, perhaps you will not be weaker than me. Blood-red inscriptions lit up on the face of the Grand Elder of the ancient Divine Hall. Even his voice became much more sinister and terrifying. Scram! Again, he only received one word in reply. After being rejected again and again, the first elder of the ancient shrine's face turned completely gloomy. It seems that you insist on refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Kill him! The first elder of the ancient shrine snorted coldly, and in the next moment, he disappeared from where he stood. A dazzling thunderbolt appeared in his hand, and it blasted toward the old Dragon King fiercely. Scram! The old Dragon King roared. Dragon power gathered in his hand, and he punched out. Dragon King's divine fist. The thunderbolt collided with the Dragon King's divine fist. Boom! There was a terrifying explosion, and the whole world was almost shattered. At this moment, the old Dragon King could not withstand the terrifying power of a peak level 7 ascension realm expert. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. At this moment, the second elder of the ancient shrine, the fourth elder of the ancient shrine, and the fifth elder of the ancient shrine had arrived behind the old Dragon King. Demonic qi surged in their hands, and the crimson runes on their faces shone brightly. Demonized ancient god! Ancient god body! The three of them roared at the same time. Demonic qi exploded, and three black-tainted ancient god phantoms appeared behind them. Immediately after, they punched out. Boom!